Keynes cannot sign a blank cheque to help Bedford Hospital.
More on this story coming up next with Iain Lee. The government is sending in teams of troubleshooters to hospitals in Buckinghamshire after placing the county's NHS trust into special measures. Stoke Mandeville, Wickham and Amersham hospitals were among 14 named in a report highlighting poor levels of care and weak leadership. The Health Minister, Dr Dan Poulter, told BBC Three Counties Radio the spotlight was now on managers.
If you've got a bad doctor, you can be struck off, you can be sacked, you can be sued, you can go to the High Court potentially if you've really overseen negligent care. But we need to have the same penalties now applying to hospital management. So what we're looking at doing is introducing a barring list for bad managers in the NHS.
11-year-old primary school pupils in England are to be ranked in new attainment bands so that parents can see how their child compares to others locally and nationally. The government says the change will raise standards, but teaching unions believe some youngsters could feel labelled as failures. The bill allowing same-sex couples to marry in England and Wales has passed its final hurdle in Parliament. It's expected to get royal assent later this week, with the first marriages likely to take place next summer. The Conservative MP Mike Freer is gay. He told the Commons the result was a cause for celebration.
For once we have done some good, and for once we have made a difference, and I look forward to issuing wedding invitations in due course.
The nature of the terrorist threat against Britain is changing, according to the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation. In a report out today, David Anderson will say that plots involve fewer people with less planning than in the past. The report covers the period before the murder of Fusilier Lee Rigby in Woolwich in May. In sport, Britain's Chris Froome has tweeted to ask his rival Alberto Contador to take a little more care. It comes after the two nearly collided towards the end of stage 16 of the Tour de France. And the weather, hot and sunny with the chance of rain later and a top temperature of 32 degrees Celsius. That's 90 Fahrenheit. Get the latest news and sport online at bbc.co.uk/3 counties.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. 08459 455 555. Why am I giving the phone number out? You don't know what I'm talking about. Well, stay tuned and I will tell you. We've got more on the decision to close children's services at Bedford Hospital. There are now concerns being voiced over the cost implication for Milton Keynes, the site where many of the youngsters are expected to go. Well, are you concerned about this? As the government decides to send in troubleshooters to look at what's going on with the NHS in Buckinghamshire, we get reaction to the decision to put the trust on special measures. And today I'm talking holidays. With the summer season upon us, very simple question, why would anyone want to holiday in the UK? It's expensive, you can't trust the weather, it's got very little to offer, hasn't it? Facebook.com/BBC3CR. You can send me a text, 81333. Start your text 3CR, or you can give me a call, 08459 455 555.
Across beds, hearts and bucks.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
If you go to the Facebook page, I posted this up last night, why would anyone want to go on holiday in the UK? Most people are agreeing with me. I was kind of expecting some sort of semi-backlash, but there's nothing. Most people are going, yeah, it's rubbish. Well, I wouldn't go to the UK, I go to Spain, innit? Probably not in that accent, but that's kind of the message. 08459 455 555. Now, it's a story we've been covering, well, for quite a while now, the closing of children's services at Bedford Hospital, where there are now concerns over the cost implications to Milton Keynes Hospital because of that. Bedford will no longer provide children's accident and emergency or overnight care. MK Hospital say they are ready to help and do not expect any impact on their waiting times. But Labour and Cooperative Parliamentary spokesperson for Milton Keynes South, Andrew Pakes, says as a long-term measure it would cost too much money.
I think this situation does raise some bigger questions. How long these arrangements will go on for? Will there be a cost implication for Milton Keynes? And how fast can we get Bedford Hospital back on track? We're a growing area. We need more health resources. And what we really need to happen here is Bedford and Milton Keynes both to have a children's unit up and running and serving local people. I've been reassured by the hospital team that in the short term, Milton Keynes can step in and help resolve the situation for children, seriously ill children, many of them who do need help and care. But I think once we get past the short-term blip, I think we've got to make sure that Bedford is up and running as soon as possible. Milton Keynes cannot sign a blank cheque to help Bedford Hospital.
Conservative MP for Bedford, Richard Fuller, in the Commons yesterday called for an inquiry into how this has come about.
At the end of this month, the East of England Deanery will remove junior doctors in paediatric services from Bedford Hospital. This will reduce paediatric services and obviously has major concerns for families with children in Bedford and Kempston and North Bedfordshire. Would my right honourable friend join with me and my honourable friend, the member for North East Bedfordshire, in calling for an open and independent inquiry into why the clinical supervisory failures continued at Bedford Hospital and were not addressed, and the terrible consequences that have resulted as a consequence of this?
Well, this was the response from the Health Minister, Dan Poulter.
It's right that there is now a rapid action plan brought into place by local healthcare commissioners and Health Education England supporting in that and getting in place the right supervision for medical staff to make sure that we can put things right as quickly as possible.
Well, a petition is now up and running to save children's services at Bedford, and Rebecca Smith has signed it. Morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Ian.
Rebecca, you've got an 8-year-old daughter, Bethany, haven't you? Tell us about Bethany.
Yeah, Bethany's type 1 diabetic. She was diagnosed probably about 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago now. And a year later after that, she was diagnosed with celiac disease.
Now, what's just for those who don't know, what's celiac?
Oh, celiac disease is where you can't eat gluten. You have to steer clear of wheat, oats, rye and barley.
Okay.
It does have a knock-on effect with her diabetes as well, funnily enough.
Okay. And you've used Bedford Hospital?
Yes, yeah, we're constantly there. And basically, what concerns me most about what's going out at the moment is, in fact, I'm shaking about it, thinking about it, is that when Bethany was diagnosed, her GP failed to pick it up, the locum at her GP failed to pick it up. NHS Direct, we were poorly advised. And by the time we got to Bedford A&E, Bethany was slipping in and out of consciousness. And, I mean, like I say, this was 5 years ago now, and I'm shaking about it now, thinking about it.
Yeah.
And basically what concerns me is that to a triage or to a nurse, when you're going in and registering when you go into A&E, she just looked like a sleepy baby in my arms. She was 3.5 years old at the time. And because, of course, diabetes is, it's a hidden disease. And if I'd have been asked to go elsewhere with her, or she hadn't have been considered a serious case, I don't know if we'd have had a Bethany to hold now.
So you're saying that if you'd have turned up at Bedford Hospital or tried to make that extra journey, that extra long journey to Milton Keynes, she might have died?
Yeah.
Oh, that brings it home, doesn't it?
It does.
So what do you think about the changes that are taking place, the closing of the children's A&E and the closing of overnight care? The wrong decision?
Absolutely. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, when Bethany was diagnosed, she was admitted and she was in there for 5 days. And those 5 days, I stayed with her by her bed day and night. And it was a bit like having a lovely blanket wrapped around you, and all the staff there were really nurturing, caring, kind, supportive. And your world is completely turned upside down when you have a child diagnosed with any long-term illness. And to have that support there, it was just like being wrapped in a blanket and being supported. And even when I go back now with Bethany, because Bethany has to go back and have lots of tests and all sorts of bits and pieces, for her diabetes and her celiac disease. And even when I go back to the Riverbank ward now, I almost feel as if when I walk through the doors, I feel as if that blanket's being wrapped around me again. And that is the kind of support that we as a family personally experienced when we went through what we went through with Bethany. To not have that, or not have somebody else experience that, is an absolute crime.
Rebecca, Bethany's, I mean, she still obviously has these conditions, but she's okay now, is she?
She's doing absolutely brilliantly.
Excellent.
I have to say, thankfully, we don't have to use the service that much, but there are parents that I'm in touch with in Bedford who've also got type 1 diabetics who sadly have had to use it at a very short notice. Diabetes is one of these conditions where you could have a child running around a playground 1 minute and the next minute they're on the floor. So having a service that's next to you, literally within 5 minutes, is so important, not just for diabetics, but for all children. But for diabetics, we have that comfort that we know that they're just there. They know the children, they know the situation, and they can deal with it immediately and effectively.
Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on and telling us your story. Best of luck, lots of love to Bethany. That's Rebecca Smith, whose daughter, well, you heard the story. If Bedford Children's A&E hadn't been open, well, then her daughter might not have survived. What do you think? Are you concerned about the closure of the children's units, the A&E and the overnight care at Bedford Hospital? Are you worried that Milton Keynes won't be able to cope with it? 08459 455 555. I'm going through a very big Carole King phase at the moment, so let's have some, shall we? Yes, let's.
When you're down and troubled and you need some love and care, and nothing is going right. Close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there to brighten up even your darkest night. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, all you have to do is call, and I'll be there. You've got a friend. If the sky above you grows dark and full of clouds, and that old north wind begins to blow, keep your head together and call my name out loud. Soon you'll hear me knocking at your door. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running, yeah, to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, all you have to do is call, and I'll be there, yes I will. Now ain't it good to know that you've got a friend when people can be so cold? They'll hurt you, yes, and desert you, and take your soul if you let them. Oh, but don't you let them. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am.
I love a bit of Carole King, and I've only ever listened to Tapestry and the big hits. I listened to a different album the other day. She's brilliant. Go and get her autobiography. Man, what a story. Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. Why on earth would anybody want to holiday in the UK? It's expensive, you can't trust the weather, and let's be honest, everybody's very, very grumpy, aren't they? 08459 455 555 6:15. Travel news now, here's James Worley.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thanks, Ian. Motorways aren't bad at all. Keeping an eye on the cameras. No significant, in fact, no delays at all on the M1 from what I can see. M25's building up already into the roadworks, fitting junctions 23 and 25, but all moving from what we can see on the sensors and cameras. And on the trains, a good service across the three counties. If you're heading into London on the Northern Line, there are minor delays southbound, south of Camden Town, because of a signal failure down at Angel. I'm James Worley, BBC Three Counties Radio.
James, thank you very much indeed. Nice and precise and to the point. Right, 6:16. It's Wednesday, the 17th of July. I'm Iain Lee. These are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. Ian McLaughlin, the escaped prisoner wanted in connection with Saturday's fatal stabbing in a village near Berkhamsted, has been found and arrested. Bedford Hospital's decision to close some children's services, sending patients to Milton Keynes instead, is not financially viable. That's according to the area's Labour and Cooperative Parliamentary spokesperson Andrew Pakes. In sport, Britain's Chris Froome has tweeted to ask his rival Alberto Contador to take a little more care after the two nearly collided towards the end of stage 16 at the Tour de France. I suggest you go and have a word with him. Coming up, there's an alcohol consultation today looking at issues like cheap promotions and the effect of them. Well, I'll talk to a former alcoholic who's been diagnosed with sclerosis of the liver. 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Every weekday from 12, Nick Coffer brings you
great guests.
Julian Clary, welcome to BBC Three Counties Radio. Legendary Genesis guitarist Steve Hackett, Supertramp frontman Roger Hodgson, Carol Decker of Tapau fame joins me now.
Great conversations.
China in your hand is about the fragility of your dreams and that you should be careful what you wish for.
Something very addictive about making people laugh is standing on stage and every few seconds getting that hit of a laugh.
Nick Coffer.
Weekdays from 12.
On BBC Three Counties Radio.
How much do you drink? What would make you drink less? If the price went up, would you cut back? If you had better education, would you reconsider how much you had a week? Well, the Home Office are to give a formal response to their alcohol consultation today, which looks at issues like cheap promotions and health as part of a new alcohol licensing objective. But who knows what they'll suggest? It was only last week they dropped the idea of minimum alcohol pricing, a decision that was widely criticised by health campaigners. Well, Bill Taylor from Hemel Hempstead is a former alcoholic. He stopped drinking 4 years ago after being diagnosed with sclerosis of the liver. Morning, Bill.
Good morning, Ian.
You're sounding rather too perky for 6:18 on a Wednesday morning like this, for goodness sakes. Well,
The reasons why that is because I don't drink.
Really? Hang on, I don't drink and I feel as miserable as sin this morning. I want your secret. Bill, when did you start drinking?
I've been drinking more or less all my life. The reasons why I started drinking is because I had a very bad car crash and my friend next to me got killed. And I didn't know about it at all. And, of course, this triggered me off. And I was drinking quite a lot. And then, obviously, drink got hold of me. And I was drinking and drinking and drinking. And then, of course, it affected my marriage. I got divorced, and that triggered off again, and more and more and more and more. But the reasons why I was drinking a lot is because it was too cheap.
Because it was too cheap?
Yes.
Let's go back a little bit, Bill. So before the car crash, you could enjoy a couple of pints.
Moderate drinker.
You could have a couple of pints and walk away.
Social drinker, yeah.
Social drinker, and then the car crash. And what do you think was it kind of the guilt and shame of it?
Yes, it was I felt the guilt because I was the driver.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't drink or drive or anything like that. No, I was a very reasonable person, you know. But no way I'd drink or drive, no. And anybody else don't drink or drive. But, yes, it triggered me off. It triggered it.
And I'm assuming that because it is kind of a cycle of guilt, isn't it, and shame, that you feel guilt and shame, so you drink some more, and then you feel guilty and shameful after that.
To forget.
Mm-hmm. How much were you drinking?
Oh, Ian, I could drink a reservoir. I was drinking strong stuff, bottles of whiskey, bottles of anything I could get hold of, actually. Just to deaden it and forget. anything.
And how long did this go on for?
This was going on, it was in 83 that I had the crash.
Yeah.
And it's been virtually ever since then.
At what point? How did? Oh, okay. Let's. And you said you said your wife left you. How did you? At what point did your wife leave you? Why did she decide to go?
What it was, Ian, is that I was getting to the mood swings.
Yeah.
I was getting irritable. I was getting grumpy. I was getting angry. I was everything you could think of. And my wife just got fed up with it.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things. I mean, yes, it was my fault in a way because I was drinking. But, yeah, and another thing as well was to say I had a job, I was a driver, and another thing, yes, drink and drive. I was drinking and I was driving, and I got pulled up and I lost my licence and everything, and it just ruined me. And of course I was then drinking more.
And what made you stop, Bill? How did you get the strength to stop?
I would like you, if you could, if it's possible, Ian, I would just like to do a dedication to a person called Lynn.
Yep.
She is the one that saved my life.
And how did Lynn save your life?
Well, I was in the bathroom. I was just drinking, and I was just collapsed in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And but unfortunately, she was going off to work and she couldn't do anything. She rang up the ambulance, left the door open. The ambulance came in, and she rang my daughter up at the same time as well. And then my daughter came, and the ambulance came, and they picked me up, put me into, and we went to Watford, which I can't thank enough. And I died on the table.
Oh, blimey!
Yes, and they brought me back to life. And when they brought me back to life, what they'd done was they'd done a sort of like a detox.
Yeah.
And all this that goes into it. And I was in hospital for 5 weeks. And once I'd recovered from everything that happened, I came out of hospital, Ian, and I've got an angel. I literally got an angel over me, looking at me, looking after me, and ever since then I've never stopped. I've never had.
So you don't go to any meetings or see a counsellor or anything?
I used to, yes. I used to go to a meeting called Turning Point.
Yeah.
I went there, but I was. It was all right going to the meetings. They'd done everything they could for me, but I still had the craving to. When I went home, this is the thing I was. Ian, I was a secret drinker. Yes, I used to go to pubs all the time, but I never got the satisfaction there because every time I was talking to people about my problems, they were getting drunk, I was getting drunk, and they weren't listening to me.
No.
And of course, then I went to these A&A, I went to that and everything, but I still wanted to just forget. And what happened was that, yes, I went to hospital, I died, I came out of it. The hospital, I can't thank enough.
And Bill, you're saying the reason that you continued drinking was because the alcohol was too cheap.
It was too cheap.
Really?
Very. You know, I mean.
But even if but listen, Bill, think back. I don't want to send you back there. I don't want to get a call tomorrow saying you're back off the wagon. But think back to your worst moment, right? When you were desperate, when you were drinking dregs or whatever it was you were drinking. You'd have found the money somehow, wouldn't you?
Well, this is a thing. Now, obviously I'm on income support. And when I get my money every week, what happened, I used to have an off licence, which I'm not mentioning the name.
No.
He used to tick me up. He used to give me...
a little bit of credit.
Well, I was getting 3 or 4 bottles a day.
Yeah. I bet he loved you. I bet the off-licence owner loved you.
He loved me.
Here comes Boozy Bill. Come on, let's rack him up.
Yeah, that's the one. And, of course, obviously, I was getting into debt because I had to pay him back.
Well, see, even, Bill, that backs up the point. If you were getting into debt when alcohol was cheap, people will just get into more debt, won't they, if they put the price up?
Exactly, because then I had problems of paying my rent.
Yeah.
Then I had food, gas, electric. I couldn't afford to pay anything.
It's a cunning and baffling disease.
But now, thank the Lord, and thank Lynn, and thank my daughter, and the hospital, I have come out of it, and I've now got what they call a vice versa. of drink. I can't stand the smell of it. I don't like anybody around me that drinks.
Yep.
And it just gives me a reverse. I don't know what a word I could put into words. It's just I'm allergic to it now.
Well, perfect, Bill. Listen, well, let's end it on that positive note. I think we could all do with a Lin in our lives, couldn't we? Good news there from Bill. Clean and sober. Well, what would make you drink less, do you think? I'm not sure. I mean, Bill got into debt, couldn't pay his rent when the booze was cheap. If you're a boozer, you'll always find a way to buy it. 08459 455 555. Three Counties Radio, 08459 455 555 is the phone number. Why on earth would anybody want to holiday in the UK? Oh, there's a chord, but the wrong one.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Perked right up when I heard that chord. Shame.
I'm going to have that chord. Can we get that chord put on a hotkey? Because that's inspirational, isn't it? When you say something dramatic, oh my God, the butler's dead. Ding!
It really is.
We're going to get that on hotkey. That's going to irritate people for the next 2.5 hours. Over to you, Adam.
Thank you very much, Ian. It's looking quiet on the roads. Everything moving well on the motorways, certainly. No delays on the M25 yet as you make your way through the roadworks section from Potters Bar through toward Enfield and Cheshunt. Everything looking pretty clear, in fact, through roadworks on all of the roads of the three counties. We've got some works in Luton to be aware of. Skimpot Road, they're doing bridge maintenance work today and tomorrow at the junction with Craddock Road. In Bedford, temporary lights up on the A6 near Bromham Road. That can slow things down a little bit, but not looking too bad at all at the moment. And then on the A413 in Buckingham, they're doing some water main work at the total roundabout, so that means temporary traffic lights there as well. Trains running fine. Bit of disruption for the tubes this morning. the Northern Line. Unfortunately, minor delays via Bank, southbound Camden Town down to Kennington because of a signal failure at Angel. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Adam, thank you very much indeed. Right, let's get the latest news and sport now. Here's Catherine Boyle.
Across beds, hearts and bugs.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, it's 6:30. Iain McLaughlin, the escaped prisoner wanted in connection with Saturday's fatal stabbing at a village near Berkhamsted, has been found and arrested. Bedford Hospital's decision to close some children's services, sending patients to Milton Keynes instead, is not financially viable, according to the area's Labour and Cooperative parliamentary spokesperson Andrew Pakes. And the government is sending teams of troubleshooters into Stoke Mandeville, Wickham and Amersham hospitals after placing Buckinghamshire's NHS Trust into special measures.
Three Counties Sports.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
The England striker Wayne Rooney's been left angered and confused after it emerged Manchester United do not plan to open talks about renewing his contract this summer. It's understood Rooney has expressed his disappointment to senior figures at Old Trafford after new manager David Moyes claimed Rooney would be second choice behind Robin van Persie. Better luck for our local clubs in football last night with victories all round in the friendlies. MK Dons beat Brackley 2-1 with penalties from Isel McLeod and Giorgio Rasulo. Stevenage beat a QPR 11 2-0 with goals from Luke Freeman and Greg Tansey. Luton Town beat Hitchin 4-0 at Topfield with goals from John Shaw, Sean Wally, Dave Martin and Jonathan Smith. And Wickham were 3-0 winners at Staines. Josh Scowen, Dean Morgan and Joe Kaffour were on the score sheet there. Britain's Chris Froome has asked his Tour de France rival Alberto Contador on Twitter to take more care after the two nearly collided on yesterday's stage. Froome still leads by over 4 minutes, but he knows how easily that yellow jersey could be taken away.
One little accident and that could be the end of your tour. So at the moment I'm just trying to take the least risks I can, but stay at the front of the race. Everyone knows it's a dangerous descent, and we've seen a lot of images from the past on this descent, so I was aware that it was coming, but I didn't really think that the guys were going to take unnecessary risks there.
And finally, tennis. At the age of 32, Martina Hingis is coming out of retirement to play her first competitive match on the WTA Tour since 2007. The winner of 5 Grand Slam singles titles has agreed to play in the doubles at an event in California later this month. And that's your latest news and sport. I'll be back with more at 7.
Should we play with my new toy?
Go on then.
OK, right.
Hang on a minute, what's your new toy? Should have asked that first.
No, it's not that one. Don't worry, I've left that in the car. No, so, right. Oh, Catherine, I don't know if you've heard. Right, you mustn't say anything, though.
Right, OK.
You can say what? I don't know if you've heard.
What?
Catherine, I don't know if you've heard.
What?
The butler's dead.
Oh, that's lovely. If I could raise just one eyebrow, I would have done it then.
Go on, you try one. You do one.
Iain?
Yes?
I have nothing to say.
Why? Oh, hang on. Oh, it doesn't work for you. Hang on. Let me try another one. OK. Oh, my God, Catherine!
What's the matter?
You two have split up! Go on, you try one.
OK. Iain.
What?
I bought a Westlife single.
Sorry, Catherine, you've broken it. It's not working for you. We'll have to move on. Sorry about that. Really,
disappointing.
Very poor.
Call 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Morning, Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. Lots coming up in the next 30 minutes. More on that Bucks NHS Trust that's been in the news recently. And also I'll be speaking to Justin Dealey. Can we find anybody this morning who is a big fan of holidaying in the United Kingdom? Beds, hearts and bucks, anywhere. What's the point of holidaying in Britain? It's expensive. The weather's rubbish. The people are miserable. No, abroad every single time. Isn't it?
My sweet Lord. My Lord, my Lord, I really want to see you, really want to be with you, really want to see you, Lord, but it takes so long, my Lord, my sweet Lord, my Lord. I really want to know you, really want to go with you,
George Harrison loves Harry Krishna. I've got a feeling there's something going on between those two guys. And why wouldn't there be? The Krishnas do the best vegetarian food. Off Soho Square in London, there's a cracking Krishna restaurant that I put off going into for ages because it's Krishnas, and you know, they're nice people, but they're lovely people, but you think, are they going to ring a bell in my face? But it's the best vegetarian food. Wonderful. 08459 455 555. If you want to recommend any other Krishna vegetarian restaurants, you're more than welcome to, of course. Now, the government is to send in hit squads, a rather dramatic term, into the hospitals of 11 NHS trusts, including Buckinghamshire Healthcare, where thousands of patients could have died needlessly and senior managers face the sack if standards don't improve. An inquiry after the failings at Stafford Hospital has highlighted examples of poor care, incompetence and weak leadership following a review of NHS trusts with high death rates. Our reporter Tara Gungerful is in the studio. Morning, Tara. All this came out yesterday lunchtime, didn't it?
Yes, that was when the NHS Medical Director for England, Professor Sir Bruce Keogh, published his long-awaited report. There's been lots of chat about this for a long time, and it all was about the quality of care and treatment provided by 14 NHS trusts and foundation trusts in England. They've all had persistently higher than normal death rates. Now, Sir Bruce's inquiry followed the problems at Mid Staffordshire, a story that held the front pages of the papers for weeks and in many ways still hasn't been resolved completely. Well, as a result of those revelations, the government has stated that it wants to put patients at the heart of the NHS. Now, I love that.
I love the fact they have to state that.
I know.
Surely that's the principle behind it anyway.
Exactly. You know, I'm questioning why they have to say it as well, because they should have been there in the first place. Now, speaking to Three Counties yesterday, Health Minister Dr Dan Poulter said the revelations in the report didn't mean all services were poor.
Everything at these hospitals isn't bad, and we know that there are, there's good care that happens at Buckingham and elsewhere, but the challenge is to make sure that the whole hospital provides outstanding care, and the concern that was flagged up in the review is there wasn't consistently high quality care, and there are also some questions about hospital leadership.
What did Professor Sir Bruce Keogh's report say?
Well, a lot of what we had expected, and it was interesting then, just listening to the Health Minister, Dr Dan Poulter. He talked about the fact that there was good care, because although you might have a high death rate, it doesn't mean to say that care is bad. It could be something that's happening in the local community that can boost those very unfortunate numbers. And in the report, it did say that Buckinghamshire Healthcare NHS Trust has had 309 needless deaths, and we know that the trust runs Stoke Mandeville and Wickham hospitals, and that was a figure that local people were very interested in, not surprisingly.
And one thing I don't think we flagged up yesterday, this is over a period of years, isn't it? This is several years. This isn't like in 2012.
No, this is a number of years.
I think it's 8 years, isn't it? Something like that.
The hospital, although they didn't want to talk to us yesterday when we first looked ahead at this report, we know that in February they produced a statement that said, we know about this figure and we'd put in different practices to make sure that we could address this, and there'd been improvements year on year.
OK, now what did the Health Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, tell the House of Commons about these NHS trusts?
Well, he was reporting on the findings and said that the worst performing hospitals within 11 trusts, which we now know include Buckinghamshire Healthcare, will be placed in special measures for what he described as fundamental breaches of care. He said the report had found thousands more patients, and this is over the 14, had died in those hospitals than would normally be expected. Now, Mr Hunt explained what action would be taken against the hospitals which were found to have what he described as these fundamental breaches of care. This would include hit squads being sent in. You referred to that terminology. Perhaps it's not exactly appropriate.
It sounds a little bit unpleasant, doesn't it?
It does. Troubleshooters,
yes.
I think Catherine's calling them in the bulletins. And anyway, sending in these squads, and that details of any failings would be made public.
Each hospital will be required to implement the recommendations of the Keogh review with external teams sent in to help them do this. Their progress will be tracked and made public. The TDA or monitor will assess the quality of leadership at each hospital, requiring the removal of any senior managers unable to lead the improvements required.
What's been the response locally on this?
Well, the Conservative MP for High Wycombe, Steve Baker, called for underperforming NHS boards to be sacked without delay, and he pulled no punches when he spoke in the House of Commons, with some of the worst examples of hospital care already brought to his attention.
Walter Coles died because he was forgotten. Edward Maitland died because he was fed solid food. I could name others. These are just a few of the patients who have died unnecessarily. And yet, high mortality only made it onto the board's agenda because of a trigger that was concern for reputational risk. There were no robust risk management practices in place with the board in Buckinghamshire. There were no plans to put them in place. and some key risks related to changes in urgent care were missing.
And we'll be talking to Wickham MP Steve Baker later on in the programme. If you have a look at his website, actually, he's been following this for a long time, and he's certainly had, a great deal of interest in the story, not surprisingly.
Now, one of the 11 trusts put into special measures by the Health Secretary for fundamental breaches of care is, as we've said, the Buckinghamshire Healthcare NHS Trust. They've sent us perhaps the longest statement in history, haven't they?
It is incredibly long, so I did spend some time this morning subbing it down, but in essence, this is what they have to say. Buckinghamshire Healthcare NHS Trust said, with regards to today's programme, it was unable to provide a guest, as the relevant spokespeople were briefing staff. Now, I don't know if they've had an exceptionally early start this morning, but I do appreciate that they're probably very busy addressing some issues within the hospital and talking to employees. But in a statement, the Trust Chief Executive, Anne Eden, said that they welcome the report, they take its recommendations very seriously, they're encouraged that overall there were no significant issues with the safety or quality of care provided at their hospitals, but admitted there were many instances where patients and staff said they got it wrong and they accept it's not good enough. They're going to look at all patient complaints raised throughout this review to see whether they are already being dealt with or to identify any further action that needs to be taken. They've already put actions in place that will be reviewed again in October, so we'll be able to see how that progress is developing. And Anne Eden also says that, these are her words specifically, "I know that staff at Buckinghamshire Healthcare work very hard to deliver good quality care day in, day out. On occasions we don't always get it right, but there is an absolute commitment to continue improving and to ensure safe services for local people." The statement ends with 3 words: every patient counts.
Tara, thank you very much. Well, after the news and travel, we're going to be speaking to Pam Mabbitt, whose dad died in Stoke Mandeville Hospital. So keep listening for that. Pam, if you can stay on the line, we'll get to you in a couple of minutes. 08459 455 555. Coming up to 7:15, let's get the travel news now. Here's Adam.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
We're still not looking too bad on the roads. Everything seems to be moving quite well in Luton. Work starting today on Skimpot Road. They're doing some bridge maintenance work today and tomorrow at the junction with Craddock Road. Star Street in Ware. Electricity work will be ongoing for another couple of days at the junction with Bowling Road. That's along the B1004 where you're going to find the works. And then as you make a journey toward London this morning, the A1 is starting to slow up through Boreham Wood. The speed sensor is picking up delays from Stirling Corner toward Apex Corner. Looking quite slow on the cameras around there as well. M25 starting to busy up a little bit as well into the roadworks as you make your way past Cheshunt at junction 25. On the trains, no major problems reported. On the tubes, we still have some issues for the Northern Line. If you're making a journey into London on the tube, minor delays via Bank southbound from Camden Town to Kennington, all because of signal failure at Angel. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Adam. Pam, who I just mentioned, we're going to move her a little bit later on. It's an incredible story, and I want to give her the time that she deserves. So we will have her a little bit later on in the show, and we'll be hearing about her dad, Bill, who passed away at Stoke Mandeville Hospital. Right, 6:46. It's Wednesday, the 17th of July. I'm Iain Lee. These are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. Iain McLaughlin, the escaped prisoner wanted in connection with Saturday's fatal stabbing in a village near Berkhamsted, has been found and arrested. The campaign to keep the full range of children's services at Bedford Hospital has been stepped up with the launch of an online petition. In sport, the England striker and football superstar Wayne Rooney has been left angered and confused because someone gave him a book. I'm joking! After it emerged, Manchester United do not plan to open talks about renewing his contract this summer. Coming up, why the heck would you ever want to holiday in the UK? I bet we cannot get one phone call this morning, one phone call from someone defending the idea of holidaying in the United Kingdom. I bet we can't find anybody. 08459 455 555. Can we find this morning one person who thinks it's a good idea to holiday in the United Kingdom? Why would you want to? Justin Dealey, I think, is going to do his best to try and defend holiday in the UK. Bearing in mind, this is the man that goes to Ibiza 3 times a year and is more orange than a Satsuma.
Beds, hearts and bucks weather.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Hello, good morning. Well, we have a very warm start out there. Temperatures up into the high teens in some spots, and we've got plenty of sunshine to enjoy throughout the day today. And in that case, you know it's going to happen. It's going to get hot once again. Temperatures up to the top 20s at least. I think one or two places might hit 29 or 30. And there is a very small chance as we go through the late afternoon and evening spots that we might just get a thunderstorm that builds up. Now, they're going to be really, really isolated. If you see one, I should be very surprised, but it is a chance, and I'm just warning you of it. That's across generally any of the counties. As we go through the evening and overnight, largely dry and clear. Temperatures really not falling very far. I think probably 15 degrees at the lowest in the countryside, but in the urban areas, of course, it's still quite uncomfortable for sleeping. And tomorrow we have another hot day. There is going to be plenty of sunshine, and again, temperatures at least in the top 20s, but some places hitting 30 or 31. After that, Friday and the weekend looking a little bit fresher. It is going to be a case that we'll have a bit of an easterly breeze blowing. It will still be sunny, but temperatures will be nearer the mid-20s, which I think will be a relief for some of us. That's how it's looking for now.
Thank you very much, Wendy.
Give me your attention, baby. I gotta tell you a little something about yourself. You're one of our flawless, ooh, you a sexy lady. But you walk around here like you wanna be someone else. Ooh, I know that you don't know it, but you're fine, so fine, fine, so fine. Ooh, oh girl, I'm gonna show you when you're mine, oh mine, mine, oh mine. Treasure, that is what you are. Honey, you're my golden star. You know you can make my wish come true. If you let me treasure you. If you let me treasure you. Oh, oh. Pretty girl, pretty girl, pretty girl, you should be smiling. A girl like you should never look so blue. You're everything I see in my dreams. I wouldn't say that to you if it wasn't true. Ooh, I know that you don't know it, but you're fine, so fine, fine, so fine. Ooh, oh girl, I'm gonna show you when you're mine, oh mine, mine, oh mine. Treasure, that is what you are. Honey, you're my golden star. You know you can make my wish come true. If you let me treasure you. If you let me treasure you. Oh, oh. You are my treasure. You are my treasure. You are my treasure. Yeah, you are my treasure. You are my treasure. You are my treasure. Yeah, you are treasure. Treasure. That is treasure. You are my treasure. Honey, you're my golden star. You are my treasure. You know you can make my wish come true. You are my treasure. If you let me treasure you. You are my treasure. If you let me treasure you. Oh,
If you've got a problem with a company, a council or an organisation, there's one man you should come and speak to.
You've got a problem with a mattress, I gather. Tell me all about it without naming any company name.
Jonathan Vernon Smith.
Well, every time she tried to book, the trip was cancelled because of adverse weather.
The JVS show fights for your rights and tackles your consumer problems.
Said send the receipt off and you'll get the cheque in the post.
If you need our help,
I went to speak to the man that runs this golf club.
email jvsshow@bbc.co.uk.
I'm just very pleased that you've got the money.
And we could do the same for you.
Thanks ever so much, Jonathan.
The JVS show on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Morning, I'm Iain Lee. This is Justin Dealey.
Hello, Ian. Good morning,
Can
sir.
you believe Bruno Mars in that song, which I'll be honest, is perhaps one of the worst songs I've ever heard, won't be played on this show again.
I knew he was going to say that.
Oh, it's terrible, wasn't it? Terrible. He uses the line, you sexy lady. Now listen, you are a mover and indeed a groover. Would you ever, Justin, would you ever say to someone, oh, you are a sexy lady?
Well, quite possibly after a few beers, yes, but certainly not sober. And I certainly hope that Bruno Mars, when he was recording that tune, was sober.
Let's hope, and I'm sure he was, let's hope that all of the world's pop stars are sober and free from anything when they're using studio equipment, because we don't want anything to go wrong in the studio.
I was surprised. I thought, well, where's the Beach Boys? Where's the Monkeys? Here's Bruno Mars, and there you go. You cut the song nice and early, so it didn't surprise me.
Now, Justin, the reason we've got you here, we're asking this morning, why on earth would anybody want to holiday in the UK? I don't know if you've seen this report, Justin. Tourism experts are predicting a big boost to the UK industry because of the hot weather.
Yeah, I know.
It can't last, can it? Most of the time our weather is rubbish.
Yep.
And the thing about holidaying in the UK, a weekend, go out on a Friday, come back on a Sunday afternoon or a Monday, beautiful. I could do that. Wonderful. Because a weekend is all you could spend anywhere in the UK. A week... Yeah, it's pushing it. You'd never have a fortnight holiday in the United Kingdom, would you?
Can you imagine 3 weeks? Can you imagine 3 weeks in this country?
Oh, my goodness. Why? Listen, this morning, I guarantee we will not get one person who can call up and go, oi, hang on a second, Lee, you are talking out your backside. The UK is perfect for holidays. It's expensive, you can't trust the weather, the people are miserable, and there's only so many old castle ruins you can look at.
Yeah, do you know what I have to say? Normally you're wrong, but on today's occasion you are absolutely spot on.
Rewind?
Yeah, you are right, absolutely right. Because
rewind a little bit beyond that. Normally I'm wrong.
Yeah, normally.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, normally you're kicking off and you're wrong.
You never holiday in the UK. I can't imagine you in a caravan in Dorset. I just can't picture it.
Not my cup of tea. In saying that, do you know what? It's sod's law, this. Do you remember back in June when you took a week off?
I do remember it, yes.
I normally go away in the UK for that week every year.
Yeah.
But I thought to myself, this year I'm not going to bother because I've been for the last 5 years and all it's done is rain consistently all week. It's been freezing cold. I've not bothered. As it turns out, that week was absolutely glorious.
That's a really, really boring anecdote.
Yeah.
Don't open with that one.
I'm just saying.
Justin, you have been out speaking... You've been out speaking to people. What have they been saying?
Yes, I've been talking to people about holidaying in the UK. I think you're going to get on well with the tourism board later on, aren't you?
They're coming on, aren't they? Yeah. Oh, yeah, for goodness sakes.
They're going to love you. So I've been asking people, would they prefer to holiday here in the UK or abroad? And this is what people had to say.
Yes.
When was the last time you went away?
Last year.
And where'd you go?
Hunstanton with my granddaughter.
So Hunstanton, or I can sell you Ibiza. Which would you prefer?
Hunstanton. Yeah. Why go to Ibiza when you can stay in England and have the same experience, better experience over here, I think.
Madam, you're from Jamaica. You've got that infectious laugh, haven't you? Come on, let's hear it. I think it's wonderful. Now, considering you're from Jamaica, we know about Jamaica, we know about the hot weather, the beautiful beaches. Can the UK really compare to somewhere like Jamaica when it comes to a holiday? Can it really compare? Be honest.
No, definitely not.
So if somebody said to you, a week in Jamaica or a week in the New Forest, it will be Jamaica every time.
I'd rather to be Jamaica every time. The weather, the fresh food.
I prefer to go abroad. It just means you get to see something different, doesn't it? You know, I mean, if you go abroad, if you go on holiday here, you know roughly what's here. So, you know, you're not seeing anything different. And then you've got the weather, which you can't predict. So, I mean, it's nice at the moment, but it could change any time, couldn't it?
Gary, would you really want to holiday here in the UK?
I do most of the time, yes. I'm just one of these people who can't be bothered going abroad.
So when was the last time you went abroad then?
1986.
1986, and where was that?
That was in Spain, Benidorm.
Okay. Good time?
Yeah, it was one of them things you do when you're young, you know what I mean?
Lads holiday then?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So you haven't been abroad since then? That's a long time. Do you not miss going abroad?
No. I thought it was a waste of time, to be honest. I've done everything I can do here, I've done there, so it made no difference.
Madam, you're looking pretty tan. Now, where have you got that tan from then?
UK.
Wow. Now, would you prefer to go abroad or would you prefer to holiday in the UK?
Abroad. Sun, sea, everything.
So the idea of going away somewhere in this country, does that kind of fill you with dread because you don't quite know what to expect in terms of the weather?
Really, yeah, and expensive.
Expensive. You try staying in a B&B, Justin. You could get a nice little hotel just a couple of miles from the beach in Spain for half that price.
You could too. It's very expensive in this country to eat out. Do you know what? A man has just turned up here very, very briefly with a pink suitcase. So, what's your name?
David Gardner.
David, apparently you're from Texas and you're going to Inverness. Is this true?
That's true.
Yeah? So what's so great about holidaying here in the UK?
Oh, it's great. It's wonderful, especially in the Highlands.
Not too expensive?
Yeah, a little bit, but not too bad.
Okay. Out of 10, how would you score this country for holidaying here?
Oh, 8 out of 10.
Not much of a Texas accent.
Well, no. I'm a Brit living in Texas.
Right, fantastic. All the very best. Thank
you.
There you go. Lovely
That doesn't
pink suit,
count.
guys. No,
That doesn't
really
count.
No, we can't really
He's
accept
British.
that.
You can't. That's not a holiday. He's coming home.
No, it's just a man who looks smart with a pink suitcase.
No.
I thought, what can we find here? No, we can't accept that, sorry.
So, Justin, whereabouts are you this morning?
I'm going to be off to Luton Airport. What I'm going to do, I'm going to try an experiment this morning.
Yep.
I'm going to be going off to speak to people going off to hot climates and try and convince them that maybe they shouldn't be going to Spain, that maybe they should be going to somewhere like Bognor Regis instead. So we'll see how long it lasts before I'm kicked off the airport.
You try and find those people going off to hot climbers, and we will speak to you a little bit later on. Justin Dealey, thank you very much indeed. 08459 455 555. We will be speaking, or I will be speaking, to the Chief Executive of Visit England later on. I might tone down my opinions ever so slightly when I speak to him. I don't want to upset him. Oh no, I'll tell him. England's rubbish for holidays, isn't it?
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
We just had a call from Ray, who said he's going southbound on the M1 and Junction 9 is looking particularly busy. Well, I've just had a look on the cameras and he's not wrong. It is quite slow around there this morning. We haven't had any reports or problems around there. Certainly no accidents around there as far as I can see, but it is looking particularly busy. If you're stuck in it and you can see anything else, certainly if you get wind of an accident or a breakdown, give us a call and let us know. 08459 455 555. The M25 anti-clockwise is slow from Waltham Abbey through to Enfield coming into the roadwork section. Very slow then from the M1 round to Kings Langley and again from Maple Cross to the M40. Usual delays through Boreham Wood on the A1 from Stirling Corner toward Apex Corner. And on the tubes, the Northern Line is now back to normal. It's running, I believe, now with minor delays via Bank on the southbound side between Camden Town and Kennington. They had a signal failure at Angel earlier today. Trains across the three counties running well. Adam Glenn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much, Adam. More in 15 minutes. We'll have more on concerns about how Milton Keynes Hospital will cope now that Bedford Hospital has announced it's closing its children's wards. All of that and more after the news with Catherine.
On FM, AM, online and digital radio.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. The headlines. Prisoner wanted for Hertfordshire murder found. Bedford Hospital campaigners launch online petition. And league table plans for primary pupils.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
An escaped prisoner wanted in connection with Saturday's fatal stabbing in a village near Berkhamsted has been arrested. 55-year-old Iain McLaughlin was found at an address in London at around 1 o'clock this morning. He'll now be questioned on suspicion of the murder of 66-year-old Graham Buck. The campaign to keep the full range of children's services at Bedford Hospital has been stepped up with the launch of an online petition. A public meeting will be held at Borough Hall tomorrow morning at 10. But in the meantime, people like Rebecca Smith are adding their names to a growing list of objectors on Facebook. Rebecca's 3-year-old daughter was diagnosed with diabetes at the age of 3, and she says Bedford Hospital saved her life.
What concerns me is that to a triage or to a nurse, when you're going in and registering when you go into A&E, she just looked like a sleepy baby in my arms because, of course, diabetes is, it's a hidden disease. And if I'd have been asked to go elsewhere with her or she hadn't have been considered a serious case, I don't know if we'd have had a Bethany to hold now.
The government is sending teams of troubleshooters into hospitals in Buckinghamshire after placing the county's NHS Trust into special measures. Stoke Mandeville, Wickham and Amersham hospitals were among 14 named in a report highlighting poor levels of care and weak leadership. The coalition's putting forward proposals to rank every primary school child in the country in order of ability. Ministers say sorting pupils into attainment bands will give parents a clearer indication of how their child is doing. But the General Secretary of the National Association of Head Teachers, Russell Hobby, thinks it's a bad idea.
You're turning around to an 11-year-old and basically telling them, you're in the lowest 10% of pupils in the whole country. And I just think that's a terrible thing to tell an 11-year-old. I think it stops their aspiration at that point. And the worst part about it is that these tests are not that accurate. That child may be average or they may even be an outstanding performer. But when you put an 11-year-old through a 45-minute test, if it's a hot day, if they've been up late the night before, that really does affect their performance.
The nature of the terrorist threat against Britain is changing, according to the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation. In a report out today, David Anderson will say that plots are involving fewer people and less planning than in the past. The bill allowing same-sex couples to marry has passed its final hurdle in Parliament. It's expected to get royal assent later this week, with the first marriages likely to take place next summer. In sport, the former Australia coach Mickey Arthur has confirmed he's suing Cricket Australia for up to £2.5 million following his dismissal last month. Leaked court documents detail a rift between the captain Michael Clarke and Shane Watson. The weather hot and sunny with the outside chance of rain later and a top temperature of 32 degrees Celsius. That's 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Get the latest news and sport online at bbc.co.uk/3 counties.
This is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio, if you want to give us a call. Well, there's lots to talk about this morning, including more on the decision to close children's services at Bedford Hospital. Concerns are now being voiced over the cost implication for Milton Keynes, the site where many of the youngsters will be expected to go. Are you concerned? As the government decides to send in troubleshooters to look at what's going on with the NHS in Buckinghamshire, we get reaction to the decision to put the trust on special measures. And today we're talking holidays. With the summer season upon us, why would anybody want to holiday in the UK? It's got nothing to offer at all. 08459 455 555 81333. Start your text 3CR. Or you can go to facebook.com/BBC 3CR.
Across beds, hearts and bucks.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
A quick look at the Facebook page where we posted this last night. Why would anyone want to holiday in the UK? I kind of expected a little bit of a backlash. Go, wait, whoa, don't you slag off the UK, it's brilliant. Not many of you have. Turns out most of you agree that holidaying in the UK is rubbish. Let's see what we've got here. Helen says, for the last 3 years, I've had my holiday in the winter. Either Christmas or New Year in Gran Canaria. Restores the body and mind wonderfully. I could not go away over Christmas. No, Christmas is at home. At most, travelling to your parents, but Jenny says, I've got pets. They are my choice and responsibility. I couldn't enjoy a holiday abroad knowing they were stuck in kennels. So I confine myself to... Jenny, really? I confine myself to day trips and the occasional overnight stay? There's so much in this country to see and do. Yeah, some old castles and pebbly beaches. And I'm supporting the British tourist industry. No frustrating planning or booking, no airports, flights, disappointing hotels, or boring days on a beach or by a pool. You're going to the wrong places, Jenny. Foreign holidays don't have to be by the pool or on a beach. Go to Barcelona. Go to Berlin. Go to New York City. Gary says, cost more to holiday in England than going to Spain, etc. And the weather here isn't very good. Louise says, because the UK is all I can afford. There are beautiful areas, not many hours from 3 counties. Not many hours from 3 counties. Hours from 3 counties. New Forest, Cotswolds, etc. Great for short breaks, weeks away camping. They are great for short breaks, but weeks away? Really? Then going north or to Scotland, Wales, so much to do at home. Rick says, we've been lucky and spent many fantastic holidays in the Caribbean. But if you can get lucky with the weather, then the Welsh beaches are fantastic. If you can get lucky with the weather, that's the key, isn't it? We're having amazing weather at the moment. Who'd have thought it? We had a horrible, horrible June. Who'd have thought we'd have amazing weather now? 08459 455 555. You cannot say that a British holiday is better than a holiday in Spain, in Ibiza, in Greece, the Greek islands. Can you? Can anybody phone up and convince me otherwise? 08459 455 555. Now, there are concerns over the cost implications to Milton Keynes Hospital following the closure of children's services at Bedford. Bedford will no longer provide children's accident and emergency or overnight care. Milton Keynes Hospital say they are ready to help and do not expect any impact on their own waiting times. But Labour and Cooperative Parliamentary spokesperson for Milton Keynes South, Andrew Pakes, says as a long-term measure it will cost too much money. Well, whatever the cost, parents in Bedford are worried about what this will mean. Rebecca Smith's 8-year-old daughter Bethany has to use the services at Bedford because of her type 1 diabetes and celiac disease. She is very concerned.
What concerns me is that to a triage or to a nurse, when you're going in and registering, when you go into A&E, she just looked like a sleepy baby in my arms. She was 3.5 years old at the time. And because, of course, diabetes is, it's a hidden disease. And if I'd have been asked to go elsewhere with her, or she hadn't have been considered a serious case, I don't know if we'd have had a Bethany to hold now.
But is Milton Keynes a feasible alternative? Labour and Cooperative Parliamentary spokesperson for Milton Keynes South, Andrew Pakes, is on the line now. Andrew, what do you think about this? Is Milton Keynes a feasible alternative?
Morning, Ian.
Morning.
I mean, first up, this is a really serious situation facing Bedford Hospital. I don't think they would have withdrawn the services if there wasn't something seriously going wrong there. So I am pleased that Joe and the Milton Keynes Hospital team have been able to step up to the plate and provide the help here. Because the first thing we've got to have in mind is the children who need care need to keep on getting care. But I think there are bigger questions behind this as well. This is a short-term fix, and I am glad that Milton Keynes can step in. But what I want to know going forward is how long will this arrangement be in place for? Milton Keynes Hospital is providing extra staff to help deal with this situation. When are we going to get Bedford up and running again? And what arrangements are in place for parents whose children may be seen at Milton Keynes but live in Bedford to ensure they can still visit their children, about extra costs they may be incurring?
Up to 60 kids a day use Bedford A&E service, children's A&E service, and while some of those will be, I guess, split between Milton Keynes and Northampton, that could be 30, 40 extra children visiting Milton Keynes A&E a day. Could they cope with that?
I think the hospital will cope with it. I've been reassured by the hospital that this is a really bad situation, but Milton Keynes Hospital and its staff are going to do the extra work to make sure that operations aren't cancelled for children in Bedford, and to make sure that these extra patients can be put in alongside what we've got in Milton Keynes. But I'm very sure this needs to be a short-term fix to help out those people in Bedford and not to become a long-term pattern for us.
Andrew, you mentioned that more staff would have to, or the staff would be working more hours and there would be more staff. Do we know anything about numbers yet?
I don't know numbers. The hospital has said they can rota more staff to deal with the situation. Obviously, some of the team from some of the other staff around Bedford can help out in the situation, and we know that Luton and Dunstable and other nearby hospitals are helping out as well.
But it's going to involve more staff, and that's going to cost more money, isn't it?
Absolutely. The Bedford Children's Unit's being shut down. There was obviously money that was used to run that service there. So this isn't just about Milton Keynes digging into its rainy day fund. The NHS in the east of England will help foot the bill for some of this as well. And that's where the questions are. I think we just need to make sure that this isn't a blank cheque for Milton Keynes, that the extra work we're doing in the city here to help people from Bedford is actually being recompensed back to us.
Are you asking, hoping to get money from Bedford for this, to contribute towards this?
What I'm saying is that when Milton Keynes is picking up some of the extra work here, I think we just need to make sure that that work is paid for. Remember, in the NHS, every operation that's done, all the work that's carried out there, a flow of money goes with that. And Milton Keynes will get the extra resource for carrying out operations for some of the extra care they've got there. What I just want to make sure is that actually flows through the system and we don't miss out, because this is an unusual situation.
You say it could work as a short-term measure. We spoke to Stephen Conroy, the acting chief exec of Bedford, yesterday. He said that he was hoping to get the service back up and running in Bedford by March of next year. Is that soon enough for you?
I'm not the best person to tell you how soon enough it is. To me, I want to make sure that when Bedford reopens, it has the right number of doctors and healthcare staff so that children get the best help they can get. Because that's what's at the heart of this. The service had to be shut down because it wasn't providing standards of care that some very poorly children needed. Now, I want Bedford up and running as soon as possible, but I want to make sure when it does open, the standards are there for the children and for their families that need them. But what I want to make sure is that this isn't a backdoor way to move services permanently to Milton Keynes, and I don't think it is. I just want us to keep our eye on the ball and us to get Bedford up and running safely again, so that Milton Keynes and Bedford both have the services we need.
Have you spoken to Bedford Hospital, and have they given you assurances that this isn't a sneaky way of closing down the services permanently?
I've spoken to Milton Keynes Hospital, and I'm reassured that they've got a really good action plan in place to make sure they can pick up this extra work, that they can plan out what's happening. So I know not all the children will be coming to Milton Keynes, they'll be going to other hospitals as well. This isn't about changing the way that Bedford Hospital runs in the long term, but I just want to make sure that Milton Keynes works with Bedford to resolve their problems as soon as possible.
When I spoke to Stephen Conroy yesterday, he is a little bit vague at times, and I was reading between the lines, and again, this is just my opinion, although other people do agree with this. I kind of got the impression, I would be very surprised if those children's units reopened again in March next year.
Well, I think that's the challenge for us. Milton Keynes hasn't agreed to provide this extra help now.
What could you do, though, if it didn't open? What could you do? You would still have to accept the patients, wouldn't you? Or the hospital, sorry.
Absolutely. The bottom line here is that NHS professionals, our hospital, needs to help children who need that help. But I think it's a public campaign, and that involves you, me and everyone else, to make sure that we get the hospital services that we need. I see this as about Milton Keynes being a good neighbour to a town in need next door because of problems in its children's services. But I definitely will be fighting tooth and nail. I think a lot of other people will be. If this becomes a suggestion, this is a permanent fixture.
Well, one of the things is, Andrew, that Milton Keynes is growing rapidly. As you know, you've got the fastest growing older population in the UK, and that will put huge stresses on the health service. You say it's not a long-term solution, but health professionals could be thinking very differently. Are we all being shortchanged here?
I hope not. I was a fierce critic of the Healthier Together review that went through last year, where there was some suggestion that between Milton Keynes and Bedford they could reconfigure, as they say, some of the services. And that meant maybe you'd end up with maternity services or bits of A&E being changed around, so people from here would have to, Milton Keynes would have to travel to Bedford or the other way round. That was completely wrong. We're a growing city. South East Midlands is and the Three Counties area is a growing area as well. What I'm sure of is Milton Keynes needs a bigger hospital. We need to look at the resources we've got. But in the meantime, when this emergency has happened at Bedford, it is right that we step in and help.
Andrew Pakes, thank you very much indeed. That was Labour and Cooperative Parliamentary spokesperson for Milton Keynes South, Andrew Pakes. He's hoping the situation in Bedford will be resolved in the short term. What do you think? Again, if you missed the interview yesterday with Stephen Conroy, the acting chief exec of Bedford Hospital, he can be a little bit vague sometimes. Go and listen to the BBC iPlayer. And this is my interpretation, not the BBC's view. I would be surprised if those services open again in March of next year. I hope they do. I hope March the 1st we're outside Bedford Hospital with flags and bunting and waving people through. Not waving sick children through, that would be inappropriate. But, celebrating the fact that those services have resumed. I really hope I'm wrong on this. I don't think I am. 08459 455 555.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Taking a look at the cameras on the M1 at the moment, things are still looking a little bit slow as you go past Junction 9. It's not running too badly, though, as you make your way southbound down toward London. It's just a slow patch of traffic approaching the A5 junction there at Redbourne. Things moving well on the rest of the M1. The A1 slowing up a bit from Eton Soken toward the Black Cat roundabout, though the A1M is looking fine all the way down past Welwyn and Hatfield. Into London, though, the A1 slow through Boreham Wood, Stirling Corner toward Apex Corner. On the M25, anti-clockwise, there's slow traffic Waltham Abbey to Enfield, from the M1 to Kings Langley, and from Maple Cross to the M40. And if you're commuting by train and tube this morning, well, the trains are all looking good. On the tubes, though, minor delays for the Bakerloo line, Stonebridge Park to Harrow and Wealdstone. This is because of a signal failure at South Kenton. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Adam, thank you very much. Right, coming up to 7:17 on the 17th of the 7th month. Ooh, spooky, man. I'm Iain Lee, this is BBC Three Counties Radio, and these are your headlines this morning. Police have arrested Ian McLaughlin, the escaped prisoner, wanted in connection with Saturday's fatal stabbing in a village near Berkhamsted. The campaign to keep the full range of children's services at Bedford Hospital has been stepped up with the launch of an online petition. In sport, the England striker Wayne Rooney has been left angered and confused after it emerged Manchester United do not plan to open talks about renewing his summer contract. Nick has texted in. Nick's not very happy with Wayne Rooney. Not that I'm the least bit interested in football, says Nick, but it sounds like Rooney has the strop because he's not first choice. Get over it. There is a little bit of, oh, boo-hoo, multi-millionaire Wayne Rooney. Can someone explain why he's upset? I don't know anything about football. Is he upset just because, he's been told to sit on the bench, which I think is a footballing phrase? 08459 455 555. Coming up, every 11-year-old in England is to be ranked in order of ability. Oh, imagine if your kid was the number one kid in England. Wouldn't that be fun? It's so parents will soon know how well your child is doing compared to other kids. Imagine that. Oh yeah, my little boy Stevie, he's number one in the country.
For a child, they need to be encouraged.
I don't know what that's all about.
Call 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Roberto Perrone, debating the local issues.
Bill Rowe is a guardian angel. He needs volunteers for his Luton chapter.
This is not being a policeman. You can't do a policeman's job. It is giving safe passage to more vulnerable people.
Roberto Perrone.
A red kite has been rescued from a tree in Hertfordshire. There was a lost parrot in the Three Counties, and I was ready to mobilise our best people. Forget snakes on a plane. This is snakes in Hertfordshire. Potentially 27 of them.
Roberto Perrone.
And I love the animal stories. I do the animal stories.
Weekdays from 3 on BBC Three Counties Radio. Across beds, hearts and bucks.
This is Iain Lee.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Every 11-year-old in England is to be ranked in order of ability, so as a parent you'll know how your child is doing compared with other kids. It's part of new government proposals to raise standards in primary school. So what do these parents think?
For a child, they need to be encouraged instead of being put down. So if you know that you're at the bottom, then what?
If you tell a child that they're not good enough, then they're going to get an inferiority complex and they're not going to achieve, are they?
It's good to know where you stand. It's good to have some goals, set some goals. I think it's a good thing.
Well, only parents and teachers will know an individual child's ranking. But critics say rating youngsters in this way could damage their confidence and put them off learning for life. Russell Hobby is from the National Association of Head Teachers.
You're turning around to an 11-year-old and basically telling them, you're in the lowest 10% of pupils in the whole country. And I just think that's a terrible thing to tell an 11-year-old. I think it stops their aspiration at that point. And the worst part about it is that these tests are not that accurate. That child may be average, or they may even be an outstanding performer. But when you put an 11-year-old through a 45-minute test, if it's a hot day, if they've been up late the night before, that really does affect their performance.
Only parents and teachers will know an individual child's ranking, but oh, hang on a second, we've done that bit. Look, I do apologise. From 2016, primary schools will need to make sure 85% of pupils reach basic achievement levels. At the moment, it's 60%. And money spent on the poorest pupils will rise from £900 this year to £1,300 next year. Helen Barnard is from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, which carries out research into social policy. She says this extra spending is good news.
It's interesting that given how scarce resources are, that's a big hike. That's 44% increase in the pupil premium and it's for primary school pupils. So yes, I think that's very significant. It'll give schools just that extra bit of money to try and address some of these issues.
The measures are being announced by the Deputy Prime Minister, Nick Clegg. He'll be speaking later this morning. Well, someone who is here to have her say on this now is Christine Hood, a retired teacher from Hertfordshire and former secretary of the county's branch of the National Union of Teachers. Good morning, Christine. What do you think about this?
I think it's another harebrained idea from a government that's desperate, a government that's getting desperate.
Why is it harebrained?
Telling an 11-year-old that it's in the bottom 10%, I mean, I think it's absolutely condemning that child to permanent failure. I mean, I see it also is going to describe it as our children secondary ready. Well, what are you going to do with a child that is secondary not ready? Put it back round primary again? I mean, it's pathetic.
Surely, if a child is told, look, you're in the bottom 10%, that might inspire them to strive harder, wouldn't it?
It might also switch them off completely.
But it might strive them to try hard, make them try harder.
No. Think of it like sport. If you were continually last in the 100 metres, would that continually inspire you to do better if you just weren't suited to running?
It would continually inspire me to try something different and find something that I was good at.
Well, that's a good point. So being told that you're bad at school might make you want to be good at something else, like being a vandal, being a troublemaker.
Christine, no, it might make you want to try being good at mechanics or plumbing or something else, not being a vandal. Yeah.
11-year-old, knowing much about that, particularly if they're in the bottom 10%, come on.
No, Christine, I can say the same to you. You come on, because I just think you're being a little bit negative about this. What's wrong with being told, actually, you're not very good at this, maybe you should try something else?
I'm old enough to remember the 11 plus.
So am I did it.
And remembering what that did to people who failed.
Yeah, it put them into schools where they could achieve academically, or schools where perhaps it wasn't academic.
It condemned some of them to really rubbish secondary moderns where they were condemned forever, and some kids never really got over failing the 11 plus.
Well, Christine, many children did get over failing the 11 plus, and many children went to secondary moderns, and many children achieved fantastic things as a result of doing that.
But a very large number didn't. Bear in mind that it was only about 20% nationally that passed the 11 plus. You condemned 80% to failure.
But Christine, it wasn't a condemnation to failure. It was a condemnation to a different style of teaching that was perhaps more suitable.
A style of teaching that had infinitely less money spent on it. You could almost say that the 20% who went to grammar schools had 80% of the money spent on them.
Is that a fact?
I don't know the exact.
Well, then there you go. You can't. Don't start putting out percentages if you're just making them up.
No, from the quality of the buildings, even something like that. Secondary modern schools had far less spent on them for the building.
The secondary modern school near me, Beechwood School, had a completely brand new building, whereas my grammar school
doesn't mean good quality.
My school, the Sir William Herschel Grammar School, we had to close it for a year because the roof was leaking, and we went to.
That was a combination of the two.
Right.
And the secondary modern half, you could hear what was going on in every classroom throughout the building because it didn't have proper soundproofing.
Are you just upset 'cause it might mean a little bit more work for you?
No, it will mean more harm to poorer children because there's also a correlation between academic progress and socio-economic background.
And your point is?
My point is that it's yet again hitting the bottom layers of society. Come on, you've got to do better or else this, that and the other will happen.
But what's... Christine, there's nothing wrong with suggesting that people should do better, is there?
There's nothing wrong, but if they haven't got the ability... I could have had training from Linford Christie. I still wouldn't have run, a 9-second 100 metres. I'd still have struggled because physically I'm not an athlete. Some people physically are not academic.
Right.
They haven't got the mental capacity.
Right, so they should then therefore be encouraged to do other things that they are more suited to.
They're a failure, that they're not secondary ready, is not encouraging them to do other things, is it?
I would suggest that any teacher or parent that says you are a failure is failing themselves to communicate how they can use this information to benefit themselves.
In the bottom 10%.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yes.
But that's life, isn't it?
Why don't we rank MPs? Why don't we rank BBC interviewers? Would you like to be told you're in the bottom 10% of interviewers?
Well, one, that's not true, and two...
No, I know it's not. But
two,
if you were told
I would deal with it, because it's life, and part of my job is based on ranking.
You're an adult.
Part of my job...
11-year-old.
Well, then why did you bring the point up, Christine, if you're not going to back it up? Part of my job is based on ranking, in a lot of my career, not so much here, but a lot of my career, has been based on figures.
Yes,
so so I am ranked.
You're not an 11-year-old.
But then why have you brought it up if you don't mean the point, Christine?
Because the point is, we treat children differently.
But you just asked, would I mind being ranked?
Yeah.
But why bring it up and then say, oh, but you're not a child, it doesn't count?
No, I'm saying that we treat children differently.
Then why did you suggest I was ranked?
To.
Right, okay. But so your point about adults being ranked is irrelevant?
No, it's just some adults would not like it because they're not very mature. An 11-year-old is not mature.
But life is based on what we achieve and how we are perceived.
Yeah, but part of human life is looking after the less able, not condemning them.
So what do you want to do? But who's going to slag them off, Christine? I would suggest that if you're using language like that to tell the child there are better ways of phrasing you're in the bottom 10% than slagging them off.
No, sorry, I don't think you understand the point.
I don't think you're explaining the point very well. Try again.
I think it's totally unfair to tell an 11-year-old that they're not secondary ready, which is a terminology apparently that is likely to be used. I've just been looking at the report on it. I think it's totally unfair to condemn perhaps a not very bright 11-year-old to that kind of criticism that could just affect them for the rest of their lives. I do remember people who failed the 11 plus and it affected them very badly. And I just think that is not the way a mature, responsible, caring society should treat people in that society.
What do you think we should do? Wrap them in cotton on the wall and pretend pretend they're as equal and as good as everyone else academically?
No.
Then what do you suggest, Christine?
Not. I don't think we actually should be condemning them like that.
Then what's your alternative then?
We just keep on educating them.
Just tell everyone, hey, you're as good as you're as clever as the person next to you.
Don't get fatter for being weighed more often.
Oh, Christine, I've got no idea what you're talking about.
Well, you're not very bright then, are you?
But explain your analogy about fat people.
No, I said pigs don't get fatter for being weighed more often.
Right. So I still don't
every week to make them better products. We shouldn't be testing and ranking children frequently to try and make them better.
Do you work with children, Christine?
I worked with children for 35 years.
Oh dear. And were you this rude to the children, or you just keep that for people you disagree with?
In fact, on one of my last Ofsted, I was graded as an excellent teacher.
Wow, fantastic! That's great news. I would suggest you're not the best guest, but thank you, Christine, for joining us.
I always cause controversy, don't I?
Well, you're always rude.
Oh, come on, that's not rude.
OK, thanks very much.
Okie dokie.
Yes, it is. 08459 455 555. Well, she said that if you'd failed your 11 plus, you'd been written off. Did you think that? Well, I know we've got lots of people listening who will have failed their 11 plus. Do you feel that you were written off? 08459 455 555.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
That interview needed the dramatic chord from Hard Day's Night to punctuate it at some point, I think. The A1, as you make your way from the Black Cat roundabout down toward Biggleswade, looking a little bit slow, and a queue at the Black Cat roundabout as well. A1M looking fine, but into London, the A1 through Boreham Wood is slow from Stirling Corner down to Apex Corner. The M1 southbound still very slow from the Luton Airport spur toward Redbourne at Junction 9. Ray called us earlier today saying he got caught up in it. Anti-clockwise M25 looking slow from Waltham Abbey to Enfield. Then from the M1 round to Kings Langley and from Maple Cross to the M40 you have patches of slow traffic as well. Looking at the cameras, it is all moving, but it's quite busy. On the trains, Chiltern run with disruption between Stourbridge Junction and Birmingham Snow Hill. They had a broken down train at Rowley Regis, so if you're heading up toward the West Midlands you could be affected by these problems. Lines to and from London are looking okay. Bakerloo Line Tube, minor delays. This is between Stonebridge Park and Harrow and Wealdstone. They've had a signal failure at South Kenton. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much. 7:13 News and Sport now. Here's Catherine Boyle.
Across beds, hearts and bugs.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning. The headlines. Police have arrested Iain McLaughlin, the escaped prisoner wanted in connection with Saturday's fatal stabbing in a village near Berkhamsted. The campaign to keep the full range of children's services at Bedford Hospital has been stepped up with the launch of an online petition, and the government is sending teams of troubleshooters into hospitals in Buckinghamshire after placing the county's NHS trust into special measures.
Three Counties Sports.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
The Manchester United striker Wayne Rooney has been left angry and confused by manager David Moyes' comments about the striker's role at the club. Moyes has suggested Rooney is second choice behind Robin van Persie, while Rooney's also upset the club do not plan to open talks about renewing his contract this summer. Better luck for our local clubs last night, though, with victories all round in last night's friendlies. MK Dons beat Brackley 2-1 with penalties from Isel McLeod and Giorgio Rasulo. Stevenage beat a QPR 11 2-0 with goals from Luke Freeman and Greg Tansey. Luton Town beat Hitchin 4-0 at Topfield with goals from John Shaw, Sean Wally, Dave Martin and Jonathan Smith. And Wickham were 3-0 winners at Staines. Josh Scowen, Dean Morgan and Joe Kafour were on that score sheet. In athletics, the reigning 100 metres champion Johan Blake has withdrawn from next month's World Championships with a hamstring injury. The Jamaican's been suffering with the problem since April. And the former Australia cricket coach Mickey Arthur has confirmed he's suing Cricket Australia for up to £2.5 million following his dismissal last month. The court documents were leaked to a news organisation in the country and contain details of a rift between the captain Michael Clarke and Shane Watson. But the England wicket-keeper Matt Pryor is not concerned about his opponent's problems.
Quite honestly, we have our own things to worry about. We've got our own, making sure that our team's right and we're playing the best we can play. We want to, hit our straps and focus entirely on getting our skills right. And the minute you take your focus off that is when you come undone. So I think it's really important that we, maintain our focus on our dressing room and making sure that's right.
And that's your latest news and sport. I'll be back with more at 8 o'clock.
Across beds, hearts and bucks.
This is Iain Lee.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
08459 455 555. We've yet to have someone call in and defend holidaying in the UK. It doesn't seem possible. Why would anybody want to holiday in the UK? We've got some nice weather now, but that's it. There's not a lot to do. It's expensive. The people are grumpy. 08459 455 555. Now, the government is set to send in troubleshooters into the hospitals of 11 NHS trusts, including Buckinghamshire Healthcare, where thousands of patients could have died needlessly. The trusts have been told that senior managers face the sack if standards don't improve. An inquiry after the failings at Stafford Hospital has highlighted examples of poor care, incompetence and weak leadership, following a review of NHS trusts with high death rates. Bill Weaving from Aylesbury died at Stoke Mandeville Hospital. His daughter, Pam Mabbitt, complained to Buckinghamshire Healthcare NHS Trust about the care he received prior to going there. She joins me now. Morning, Pam.
Good morning.
Pam, what happened to your father?
Well, I phoned him on the Monday evening and he sounded absolutely terrible. So the next morning I rang the GP surgery and asked for an urgent home visit. He wasn't in the best of health. His GP should have known that. Nothing happened. So I rang again on the Thursday, actually spoke to the doctor, told him that I was extremely worried and he must go that day. He, in his infinite wisdom, decided not to bother. That afternoon, I got a phone call from a paramedic saying my father had collapsed on the floor. He'd been on the floor for 3 hours before he'd managed to get my mother to pull the emergency cord in the bungalow. And his heart rate was 27. I must add that my mother had dementia, which 3 years before I'd had to tell the GP about because he didn't have a clue.
And so what happened there? The ambulance came and took your dad away. What happened?
Well, they had to take Mum as well.
Right.
I live in Dorset. So I had to drive all the way up to Stoke Mandeville. When I got there, I had to leave my 16-year-old because she was doing GCSEs. They'd got his heart rate up to 33, 34. I mean, I can read the monitors. I understand these things.
Yeah.
And I think Stoke Mandeville did what they could for him, but it was too late because the GP couldn't be bothered. Now, I complained about this, and as far as I'm concerned, the Primary Care Trust of Buckinghamshire are, in my opinion, biased in favour of medical staff. They treated me with sarcasm, patronising, and less than truthful answers. Now, it's 4 years, and I still don't know whether the receptionist put it in the book, the doctor read it and couldn't be bothered, or what happened. I just don't know. Now, when we began this, woman at the Bucks NHS told my advocate, and I can quote this, she didn't think the doctor should have it hanging over his head.
How does that make you feel?
Well, I'm just appalled.
You've contacted the Health Minister and the Prime Minister about this. Any response from them?
David Cameron noted my concerns. He passed it on to Earl Howe, who wrote and told me how to sue them.
Oh.
I'm a pensioner, and I can't afford to sue the government, can I?
What do you make, Pam, of the trust being put in special measures?
It's about time. It should have happened years ago. And unfortunately, it's not just the Buckinghamshire NHS Trust. I spoke to the advocacy service that I used, and I said, how often does this happen? And they said, more than we would like. I was having a conversation with one of my neighbours here in Dorset. She has a severely disabled daughter, and she's complained about when the daughter was born. And one of the answers they've given her, one of the reasons, is because she didn't maintain eye contact with the doctor while she was giving birth. They make things up.
What would you like to see happen, Pam?
I would like to see a complete and utter shake-up of the PCTs, because I do believe they're biased. I'd also like to know how many people who have lost loved ones in these hospitals have complained to their local NHS and been fobbed off like I have.
Pam, thanks very much for sharing your story with us this morning. That's Pam Mabbott, whose dad Bill died at Stoke Mandeville Hospital. We can talk now to the Conservative MP for Wickham, Steve Baker. Steve, what's your reaction to the problems facing the Bucks Healthcare NHS Trust?
Well, good morning. Well, I'm very sorry Pam went through that whole awful experience and lost her father in that way. I'm sorry to say that her experience has the characteristics of many cases that I've heard. I've mentioned two of them in the Commons yesterday. I'm very glad that the Trust now is in special measures, because the story that I've read in the various reports that have come out is consistent with what my constituents have been telling me. So yes, she's quite right. It is time that it was given a shake-up. That shake-up is now happening. Government's facing up to the need to get the NHS out of a culture of denial and to shake things up. Let's not forget there's a lot of good care does happen in the NHS, but one of the battles I've had is to say that actually is no excuse for brushing under the carpet shortcomings. So yeah, we have abolished the PCTs. We've now got clinical commissioning groups, which are significantly different. There's a very substantial move towards getting patients involved. And I'm optimistic that yesterday and putting these trusts into special measures will mark a turning point.
Has High Wycombe Hospital suffered since losing its A&E department, or do the problems date back further than that, do you think?
I think the causes date back further. The causes are that around the country there's a whole range of district general hospitals like the one in Wickham, which were set up for medicine as it was in the 50s, and it's the kind of medicine which mentally all of us still expect, an A&E locally, consultant-led maternity locally, and so on. But between changes in medical practice and things like the Working Time Directive, we've ended up with doctors having a narrower range of skills, needing to be more specialist to drive up standards. And the result has been that the medical profession has been pulling in a different direction, and they've wanted to centralise for quality, whereas the public want local, and quite rightly want local access. So the underlying causes go back a very long time and are about the development of medical science and the management of medical staff. My challenge is to make sure that the service that we have performs, and in particular that it communicates. Because let me tell you one really crucial thing. If you have a heart attack or stroke in Wickham, you get treated in Wickham. You don't have to go to A&E in Stoke Mandeville. You're treated in those units in Wickham. And unfortunately, altogether too many people still think you'd have to make it to Stoke Mandeville's A&E. It's not true. If you have a heart attack or stroke, you dial 999 and they take you to the nearest specialist unit, which in High Wycombe's case is in High Wycombe.
Have you been made aware of any problems at High Wycombe, Steve? Have patients' families contacted you with stories?
Many times I submitted a dossier to the Keogh review which summarised many of those cases, and I've mentioned cases in the House. In fact, I've got to the point where I felt I was banging my head against the wall trying to get people to accept that there really was a problem with patient experience, patient safety, governance and so on. And at last, through the Keogh review, we've now got a written down account, professional, expert-led account of the problems that do exist in Buckinghamshire. There's a good to-do list. I think now everybody needs to focus on helping the Trust meet the requirements of the Keogh review. They'll be inspected again within 12 months. And as I emphasised in the Commons yesterday, the boards have to be held to account for delivering that transformation.
And by being held to account, what exactly? What are the changes that are being suggested?
Well, sorry, two things. What are the changes in holding them to account? Holding them to account, I want to know how to remove board members and whole boards, and I asked the Secretary of State to set that out yesterday. He said that he would, and I expect him to do so. I'm sure he will. So we need to be able to get rid of senior staff and board members if they don't deliver against these changes. If people want to see what changes need to be implemented, that one of the places they can get them from is my website. If they go to stevebaker.info, I've summarised the reports and the actions required and linked to the original documents. Those are available on the NHS Choices website.
Your Conservative colleague Cheryl Gillan has spoken about staffing issues adding to the problems for the NHS Trust. Is that the main problem, the lack of staff?
Well, I'm afraid for me the main problem is the board. The board is going to have to go through a rapid development programme that is set out in the key findings and action plan. It's concerning that they didn't have proper risk management processes in place, and they don't adequately challenge their executives. So these are two of the points that were brought up about the board. I think staffing issues, yes, of course they're an issue, but the Trust has to be properly managed from the top all the way down. There are significant findings in the Keogh report about the board. The board has to change. Once the board has changed, they will be in a better position to drive the necessary changes across the organisation.
Steve, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. That's Conservative MP for Wycombe, Steve Baker. Earlier on this morning, we were talking about the 11 Plus. Did you do the 11 Plus? I did it. I passed. I went to a grammar school. It wasn't particularly good. When you say a grammar school, people think of like huge halls and a grand old building. Wasn't the school I went to. Herschel Grammar School in Slough. I mean, it was all right. We had to move out for a year and go to an abandoned school because the roof was leaking. But did the one guest suggested that if you failed your 11 Plus, you were written off. You felt like a failure. Now, I think that's a little unfair and a little harsh. I'm not saying we should bring back the 11 Plus, but I know lots of people that failed their 11 Plus and went on to great success, both personally and professionally. No, lots of people who passed their 11 Plus who became druggies, alcoholics and messed up their lives. So what does that tell you? 08459 455 555. Mark in Bletchley. Iain, I failed the 11 Plus and more later and still failing exams. I don't take it to heart. 08459 455 555. Did failing your 11 Plus set you up as a failure for the rest of your life? 08459 455 555. Let's get the travel now. Here's Adam.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Cheers, Iain. The A1, as you make your way toward the Black Cat roundabout southbound, is looking pretty slow with delays going on to the Barford bypass. It's not looking too bad along the A421 though. If you're going to be heading a little bit further down the A1, it's running okay past Biggleswade, not too bad along the A1M, and then it slows once you get to London. The A1 is busy through Boreham Wood from Stirling Corner toward Apex Corner. The M1 is slowest at the minute southbound from Junction 11 at the A505 toward 10 for the Luton Airport spur. On the M25, anti-clockwise stop-start traffic as you make your way into the roadworks section past Junction 25. All looking a little bit slow as well as you go from the M1 to Kings Langley and from Chorleywood to the M40. Chiltern are running with a bit of disruption, but it's on their services in the West Midlands. They had a broken down train earlier this morning that caused a few delays into and out of Birmingham, but services to and from London are running fine. Bakerloo Line Tube, minor delays, Stonebridge Park to Harrow and Wealdstone because of a signal failure at South Kenton. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Adam, thank you very much. Right, it's 7:46 or thereabouts. It's Wednesday the 17th of July. I'm Iain Lee. These are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. Police have arrested Ian McLaughlin, the escaped prisoner, wanted in connection with Saturday's fatal stabbing in a village near Berkhamsted. The campaign to keep the full range of children's services at Bedford Hospital has been stepped up with the launch of an online petition. In sport, the Manchester United striker Wayne Rooney has been left angry and confused by manager David Moyes' comments that he is second choice behind Robin van Persie. Coming up, holidays in the UK. No one actually enjoys holidaying here for longer than a weekend, do they? Well, no one's called in to say yes yet. 7:46, let's get the weather. Here's Wendy.
Beds, Herts and Bucks weather.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Well, if you are on holiday at this point in the year and the weather is like this, you needn't go anywhere else, do you, really? It's absolutely glorious. We once again have a very warm start, 17 degrees Celsius at Luton at the moment, and as we go through this afternoon with plenty of sunshine, we are going to get to the top 20s once again. The closer you get to London, the more chance you have of getting to 30 or 31 degrees Celsius, and there may be one or two places that hit 32 today, 90 degrees Fahrenheit, the warmest, or hottest, I should say, day of the year yet. Of course, with this, we get very high pollen, we get high UV as well, so the usual precautions there. As we go through the evening, there is a chance we'll get a thunderstorm developing. Now, it's a very, very small chance. If they crop up at all, they will be extremely isolated, so you'll be jolly unlucky to get caught in one of those. Mostly today, it is going to be dry, and that continues through the night as well. Largely dry, clear conditions, with temperatures dipping to between 15 and 17 degrees once again, so it's still rather uncomfortable for sleeping as we go through tonight. And we've got another hot day tomorrow as well, at least up to 27 or 28 degrees in temperature, but some places getting up to 30 in the sunshine once again. If it's all too much for you, hold out for Friday and the weekend. There is going to be a slip in the temperature as a breeze springs up from the east. That means we should be at around sort of 24, 25 for Friday, and a little bit cooler than that over the weekend, but still with lovely sunny weather to come. So a little bit fresher Friday into the weekend, but two very hot days at the moment.
Thank you, Wendy.
Every weekday morning, questions are asked.
What should the government do next to stop people smoking? Who do you blame for our failing high streets?
Opinions are formed.
There is no place in a civilised society for people like that.
They should get real.
Part of me says it is wrong.
And you get to have your say.
I think the whole thing is absolute garbage, frankly.
Join in with the big phone-in from 9.
Not everyone will agree. What an interesting conversation.
The JVS Show, weekday mornings from 9 on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Now, dear listener, we have not only the radio version of this show, there is the pocket podcast version of this show. You can carry me around in your pocket. It's catchy, but not literally true. It's very easy to get the podcast. You can either go to iTunes, type in Iain Lee BBC and it pops up, or bbc.co.uk/Three Counties Radio. Scroll down and click download podcast, and it's yours to keep forever. In this week's podcast, you can hear Ralph. Now, Ralph called in to tell me why he thinks a life sentence should mean a life sentence.
Well, 30 years ago, my son was murdered. I believe the criminal who committed the crime served his prison sentence. He's probably now out enjoying a life with a family of his own. I am still suffering, and my family still suffer. Nobody has ever asked the victims' families what they feel. The judges sit on their seats and think, let's get him out and reform him, but I can never be reformed in my thoughts of agony and pain when I visit my son's grave.
Ralph's story is incredible, absolutely incredible. That's part of the podcast. You can also hear what happened when I spoke to the editor of The Sun, David Dinsmore, about his front page last week. You probably saw it, picture of Gaza for shopkeepers to cut out on display saying, don't give this man a drink. It's to sell newspapers, isn't it, David? It's to make money. You're exploiting a man with a disease that's slowly committing suicide. It's to make money.
If people want to cut out our front page, cut off the masthead of The Sun and stick it up just to get that message out, I'm perfectly happy.
When will you get the figures in and how many extra papers you shifted?
Well, that is not what this is about.
OK, of course it's not. I can't believe I dissed the editor of The Sun on the radio. You know that he put the phone down and said, get me everything you can on Iain Lee. Let's get him. You can also hear a bit of this in the podcast. And Andy Murray went, Oh, no, it's not fair. Oh, no, don't put the roof on. Oh, it's not fair. Oh, no, Mum, don't put the roof on. Who wouldn't want to listen to that every day? Every day you could listen to that. Go to iTunes, type in Iain Lee BBC, or go to bbc.co.uk/3 counties, and you can download the best bit of the show every week. Talking about holidays. Oh, well, we'll do that in a second. Let's talk about the 11 Plus. We had a guest earlier on who said people who failed the 11 Plus were made to feel like failures, and it set them up for failure for the rest of their life. Well, did that have that effect on you? 08459 455 555. Andy in Stotfold. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning.
Are you old enough to do have done your 11 Plus?
No, I don't. I'm 29 years old, so I don't think I did an 11.
Okay, right. What's your take on it?
Right, children age of 11, I don't think they have the social skills, the social ability to be able to deal with that kind of criticism at that age. It's how it's put across and when it's put across is the most important thing.
So this is the thing the government wants to introduce about kind of assessing every child.
Right. I just don't think it's appropriate at that stage. Whether they're ready to go into secondary school or not is something to be dealt with when they're at secondary school. I was pushed straight into secondary school, and I had to raise my bar as I went along. You know, I got my GCSE grades at the end of school. They were rubbish, and I still got through university, got a degree. I knew, based on my grades, that I wasn't as good as other students. And I was my own best critic.
But so at 11, you dealt with it.
Absolutely, I dealt with it. But I don't think children are going to be able to respond to that criticism. Give them the criticism, fine, but it's not going to make a darn bit of difference.
But surely it's how you phrase it. If you go, oh, look, you're in the bottom 10%, you're thick, you're rubbish, you are, then that's not going to help. But there are creative and encouraging ways to present that information, aren't there?
Absolutely. If you tell a child that, look, you're not doing so well in this area, you're doing better in this area, what interests do you have? Careers guidance, that kind of thing. But not at the age of 11.
At what age do you think, Andy?
I think a bit later, as they're getting towards their mid to late teens, because at that age they're looking to possibly going out and looking to go out into the world of work. It's not so far away. At the age of 11, they're interested in Harry Potter and iPods and iPads and so forth. And that's part of the...
But if you do it too late, if you do it like 16, 17, something like that...
Oh, that's way too late.
That is too late, isn't it? Because if you get them early enough, and if you find an 11-year-old says, well, do you know what, I like a bit of... I like looking at cars, then maybe that could... You could start then. I don't think it's too ridiculous to get a kid to take apart an engine at the age of 11 in a controlled environment.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's all about... building the social skills as early as you can build them. But I just don't think they'd respond to it. I don't think they'd get the response that they'd get when they've had a bit more of a worldly education that they have in secondary school. It's not as worldly in junior school as it is in secondary school.
Andy, we've got to end it there. Thank you very much indeed. 08459 455 555. Now, here's a surprise. Tourism experts are predicting a big boost to the UK industry because of the hot weather. With the school holidays on the doorstep, hotels, B&Bs, caravan parks, tourist attractions in this country are all expecting a boom in sales. Is it a boom or a boon? I think both are equally applicable, but it's got to be only fleeting, hasn't it? And really, why would anybody want to holiday in the UK? Well, James Berriford is Chief Executive of Visit England. James, England's not as good as abroad, is it, for holidays?
No, it's not. It's better. I think you can just look at the figures to attest to that. Tourism in this country is worth £97 billion. So a lot of people are spending a lot of money in this country boosting our industry. We are one of the strong industries in this country, and people love it. They absolutely love it, both domestic visitors and international visitors.
Where would you recommend in beds, hearts and bucks? What places could people head to?
Well, the beauty of Beds, Hearts and Bucks is it is central. There are so many places to see and do on one's doorstep. So, from Whipsnade, obviously, to Stockwood and the Hat Museum, there's a whole range of things to see and do. But, I would say cast your net further afield too. I mean, Beds, Hearts and Bucks is brilliant. It's lovely. But think about further afield. If you wanted to take a slightly longer break this summer, then why not travel up to the Yorkshire coast or down to Devon or to the Peak District in Derbyshire? That's the beauty of this country. There is so much variety in near distance for people, an easy travelling distance for people, that it's just a hassle-free holiday.
The weather's unpredictable, places are expensive and people are grumpy. Yeah, you go abroad, you can pretty much bank on what you're going to get. You've got the exotic experience of being in a foreign country, hearing foreign languages, tasting foreign food. People are always pleased to see you.
Well, no, we're not grumpy in this country. We've just been through the Olympics, last year, and we have gone up in the Nations Index to number 5 in the world because of the welcome that we showed. We are a welcoming race, actually. We may take a little bit of time just to get past that first step, but when you do, we're engaging, we're interested, and we're charming. So please don't do us down. We are a welcoming race, and I think it's a myth about being expensive. It costs you nothing to sit on the beach at Brighton. It costs you nothing to sit on the beach in the south of France. You can do things in this country that are free. There's all the museums and the attractions, many of them are free. So, I would take against the fact that we are expensive. We're not. We're good value.
James, what's your personal number one favourite place in the UK to go on holiday?
Well, gosh, there are so many. And
I want you to pick one, if you had to pick one.
All right, one would be the beach at Aldeburgh, eating fish and chips and drinking champagne.
Oh, look at you, mixing and matching, James.
I know.
James, and where are you going on holiday this year, if you don't mind me asking?
Peak District
for
2 weeks.
Lovely. James, thank you very much indeed. That's James Berriford, Chief Executive of Visit England. He puts forward a good argument. I would suggest not Brighton Beach. It's pebbles. It's not a real beach. A real beach is sand. There is okay, I'll give him that. There is something very romantic about walking along a beach with a bag of chips. There's something very nice about that. That's an afternoon. Done. What next? There's museums. Oh, Dad, do we have to go to the museum? Yeah, well, that's all there is to do here. Listen, a weekend away in Britain, fantastic. 5 days? Yeah, why not? Go on. Any longer than that, a week, 2 weeks. You want to be abroad, don't you? Why would anybody holiday in the UK? 08459 455 555.
Travel news for Beds, Hearts and Bucks.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Things on the trains are looking good at the moment. No delays on the departure boards. Almost everything running completely to time and no major disruption. Problems for the Bakerloo Line tube, though. It runs with minor delays. Stonebridge Park to Harrow and Wealdstone because of a signal failure at South Kenton. On the roads, we're not looking too bad this morning. There's a bit of a queue on the A1, though, coming to the Black Cat roundabout as you make your way from Eton Soken southbound. It's also slow from the A1M. Hitchin to Stevenage, junction 8 to 7. The A1 into London looks busy again from Stirling Corner toward Apex Corner. On the M1, there's a patch of slow-moving traffic around the A505, junction 11, down toward the Luton Airport Spur and beyond toward junction 9. A41 southbound looking slow down to the M25 at junction 20. And then on the M25, you've got slow-moving traffic both ways through the roadworks section from the A1M to the A10, and anti-clockwise busy from the M1 to Kings Langley and Chorleywood to the M40. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Kids, you've got a choice. This year, we can either go on holiday locally and go to the Hat Museum, or we can go to Disneyland. Which do you prefer? Oh, really?
On FM, AM, online and digital radio.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
It's 8 o'clock. I'm Catherine Boyle. The headlines: police track down escaped prisoner. Concerns Milton Keynes is writing a blank cheque for Bedford Hospital. And teachers pan plans for a pupil league table.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Iain McLaughlin, the escaped prisoner wanted in connection with Saturday's fatal stabbing in a village near Berkhamsted, has been arrested. Following a nationwide manhunt, the 55-year-old was tracked to an address in London where he was arrested at 1 o'clock this morning. McLaughlin was on day release from Grendon Underwood at the time of 66-year-old Graham Buck's death this weekend. Bedford Hospital's decision to close some children's services and send patients to Milton Keynes should not be seen as a long-term solution. That's according to the Labour and Cooperative parliamentary spokesman for Milton Keynes South, Andrew Pakes. He's worried his area may be writing a blank cheque to bail out Bedford, something he says cannot be allowed to happen.
This is a short-term fix, and I am glad that Milton Keynes can step in. But what I want to know going forward is how long will this arrangement be in place for? When are we going to get Bedford up and running again? And what arrangements are in place for parents whose children may be seen at Milton Keynes but live in Bedford to ensure they can still visit their children, about extra costs they may be incurring?
The government is sending teams of troubleshooters into hospitals in Buckinghamshire after placing the county's NHS Trust into special measures. Stoke Mandeville, Wickham and Amersham hospitals were among 14 named in a report highlighting poor levels of care and weak leadership. The Conservative MP for Wickham, Steve Baker, welcomed developments.
I'm very glad that the Trust now is in special measures, because the story that I've read in the various reports that have come out is consistent with what my constituents have been telling me. So it is time that it was given a shake-up. That shake-up is now happening. The government's facing up to the need to get the NHS out of a culture of denial and to shake things up.
11-year-old primary school pupils across England could be ranked against one another under proposals being put forward by the government. It's one of the range of measures that the Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg says will raise standards and prepare children for secondary school. Retired teacher Christine Hood is the former secretary of the Hertfordshire branch of the National Union of Teachers, and it's fair to say she's not keen.
I think it's another harebrained idea from a government that's getting desperate. Telling an 11-year-old that it's in the bottom 10%, I think it's absolutely condemning that child to permanent failure. I see it also is going to describe it as are children secondary ready? Well, what are you going to do with a child that is secondary not ready? Put it back round primary again?
In sport, the former Australia coach Mickey Arthur's confirmed he's suing Cricket Australia for around £2.5 million. He's claiming his dismissal involved racial discrimination. The weather hot and sunny with a chance of rain later and a top temperature of 32 degrees Celsius. That's 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Get the latest news and sport online at bbc.co.uk/3 counties.
This is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio, 3 minutes past 8. Oh, Wednesday the 17th of July. Where are you going on your holiday? I'm going abroad, of course. But, let me just say, while I'm going abroad, members of my family are moving into my house, so don't get any smart ideas, burglars. Got a cat and a rabbit, I can't leave them on their own, can I? I've looked into it, I can't. They need food and water. Wow. So there'll be people in my house for the 2 weeks I'm away. Don't get any smart ideas. Burglars, I know what you're like. Cheeky lot you are, you naughty burglars. But I'm going abroad. Why would anybody holiday in the UK? It just doesn't make sense. A couple of days, lovely. 4 days, I'll have that. Any more than that, it's just ridiculous. No one's called in yet, or no one I've spoken to defend holidaying in the UK. I don't think you can. 08459 455 555. Also, facebook.com/BBC3CR. Other slightly more serious things on the show between now and 9. More on the decision to close children's services at Bedford Hospital. There are now concerns being voiced over the cost implications for Milton Keynes, the site where many of the youngsters will be expected to go. Well, are you concerned? And as the government decides to send in troubleshooters to look at what's going on with the NHS in Buckinghamshire, we get reaction to the decision to put the Trust on special measures. Facebook.com/BBC3CR. You can send me a text, 81333, start your text 3CR, or you can give me a call, 08459 455 555. It kind of works for me. Right. There are concerns over the cost implications to Milton Keynes Hospital following the closure of children's services at Bedford. Bedford will no longer provide children's accident and emergency or overnight care. Milton Keynes Hospital say they are ready to help and do not expect any impact on their waiting times. But Labour and Cooperative Parliamentary spokesperson for Milton Keynes South, Andrew Pakes, says as a long-term measure it would cost too much money. Earlier on this show I asked him if he thought both patients in Bedford and Milton Keynes were being shortchanged.
I hope not. I was a fierce critic of the Healthier Together review that went through last year, where there was some suggestion that between Milton Keynes and Bedford they could reconfigure, as they say, some of the services, and that meant maybe you'd end up with maternity services or bits of A&E being changed around, so people from here would have to, Milton Keynes has to travel to Bedford or the other way round. That was completely wrong. We're a growing city. We're South East Midlands is and the Three Counties area is a growing area as well. What I'm sure of is Milton Keynes needs a bigger hospital. We need to look at the resources we've got. But in the meantime, when this emergency has happened at Bedford, it is right that we step in and help.
Well, there are thousands of parents who've shown their support for the Riverbank ward on social media. Juliet Felsh is one of them. Good morning, Juliet.
Good morning.
Juliet, tell me what your connection is with Bedford Hospital.
I've got a 5-year-old daughter who's got, amongst other things, she's got uncontrolled epilepsy, and she can't bring herself out of the seizures. So I usually have open access to Riverbank ward and rely on them to help.
Now, this open access, I've heard this phrase several times. For those who don't know what it means, can you explain that?
It just means that I can get her straight onto the ward if needed for help. I don't have to ring through or go through A&E or other the GP or anything.
And so how often have you had to use this ward?
Over 30 times in the last 3 years.
And how does it work? I mean, she's 5 and she has a fit. What do you do? Can you see the fit coming, or is it a spontaneous thing?
I don't get any pre-warning of it coming.
Right.
The start of the fit is the first thing I know. I have been trained in her rescue medication, which she relies on to bring her out of the seizure. But I can only give 2 doses of that in 24 hours, and often that's not enough to stop the fit. So she often needs intervention from the hospital to help stop the fit after those 2 doses I've given of medication.
And from the end of this month, you're not going to be able to take her to that hospital, is that right?
That's right, that's what I believe. Yeah.
So what's going to happen?
I've got no idea. I'm going to go to the meeting tomorrow to ask this very question. I get 8 minutes from the start of her seizure before I can't do anything else and she needs medical help, which isn't enough time for me to get her to Milton Keynes or Luton. And plus I couldn't drive with her having a seizure in the car.
Could you not call an ambulance?
I could. My main worry is, will the ambulances cope with more people calling ambulances? And will they come to me and get me and her to hospital in Milton Keynes or Luton or wherever within that 8 minutes? It's very doubtful.
You must be really worried about this and about these changes.
I am very worried, yeah. And there's many other people that are in a similar situation to me that have the same worries.
You're going to this meeting tomorrow, and we're going to be covering the meeting on Friday's show, I'm sure. Do you think anything can be changed, Juliet? Or is public pressure really going to have an effect on this? We spoke to Stephen Conroy, the acting chief exec of Bedford Hospital, yesterday. He says he hopes to have things back in place by March, but there are lots of people who aren't convinced by that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. One of my worries is I don't want to push for the fact for Riverbank to stay open if it's not going to be managed well enough by nurses and doctors that we need to keep it running properly. We don't want a ward running that doesn't work. So it's trying to find a balance of, OK, what can we do if we can't use it as a children's ward? What can we do to help people like me who can't make that journey to another hospital with their child? Is there a way we could perhaps have an emergency service department there that can stabilise the child and then move it to another hospital? It's trying to find a happy medium, I think. And I'd love for the hospital to stay open and it work, but if it's not going to be working properly, that's no good either.
Juliet, thanks very much indeed. Best of luck to you and Kira. Well, what do you think? Are you worried about it? Do you think Milton Keynes Hospital can cope? 08459 455 555. That's also the same number to give us a call if you could possibly defend holidaying in the UK. Why would anybody want to holiday in the UK? You can get a flight to Spain for what, 30 quid? Fly out to Spain, stay in a cheap hotel, beautiful. Oh, a bit of the old Spanish food, bit of the Spanish sunshine. Fantastic. Lynn's in Hazelmere. Morning, Lynn.
Morning.
A lovely, cheap holiday in Spain or on a Greek island. It costs you a few quid. Nice, cheap hotel. Go out to some cheap tavernas. Wonderful food, gorgeous sunshine. Friendly, warm, lovely people. Perfect, isn't it?
No.
Oh?
I mean, not really.
Oh.
We've got some wonderful places in this country. You should be supporting our country, not going up to Spain and getting Spanish tummy. Really. We have got the most amazing places. And there's Chiltern Hills. We've got wonderful, wonderful...
Hills.
It's lovely here.
I don't want to go to Hills for my holiday. Hills? That's not holiday, that's work.
Beaches. We're going to Wales next to sea for our holiday this year.
When are you going to Wales?
No, Wales next to sea.
Oh, Wales next to sea.
It's a lovely place.
Yeah, and
really beautiful, lovely sandy beaches.
What's the weather going to be like? You don't know.
Well, it doesn't matter.
It does. If you're on a beach, you don't want to be in the middle of a storm.
Well, we don't have that many storms in this country in the summer. I mean, the odd one, but they have them abroad as well. And when you have them in Spain, it really does rain.
Oh, but Lynn, there's nothing better than being out in that warm Spanish rain. Oh, it's adorable.
It's just as lovely here.
Not that cold, biting wind in Norfolk.
Look, we're having a heat wave. Stop complaining. It's lovely here.
But how long are you going to go there for?
2 weeks.
Oh.
Take my doggies, have lovely long walks, picnics on the sand dunes. Lovely.
You haven't got kids, have you?
I've got a 19-year-old.
Okay, because kids will be well bored. 2 weeks in Norfolk?
No, there's lots of things to do. There's nature reserves. You just get your kids interested in nature and things.
For a second, I thought you said naturism. I don't want...
No.
Okay, so there's nature. So nature reserves. That's a morning. What are you going to do?
That's a whole day. You can take a picnic. There's loads of things.
A museum? You going to go to a museum?
Well, you can do, but there's other things you can do as well. You know, I mean, when my son was little, we used to go pond dipping and things, and that's not skinny dipping, and it's fabulous.
Lynn,
pools on the beach. You can spend hours on the beach.
Lynn, thank you very much indeed. Lynn in Hazelmere is bigging up the British holiday. Shirley.
Yes, Ian.
Milton Keynes.
Yeah.
Imagine you and me, we get a cheap EasyJet all the way over to Zakynthos, cost us about 35 quid each, get a cheap hotel, we drop our bags off, we nip down to the beach, get a fantastic milkshake in the evening, I'll take you to a lovely taverna, we get some fantastic cheap Greek food. Are you in?
No.
Oh.
No, nothing on this earth would get me on an aeroplane.
Sorry?
No.
Why?
No. I've no desires whatsoever to fly. None at all.
Why? What's wrong with flying? I mean, it's not very pleasant, but it's okay.
No, it just doesn't interest me one little bit.
Why? When was the last time a plane crashed? Oh, yeah, last week. Apart from that...
I'm not talking about plane crashes.
Right.
I just don't want to fly, and that's all there is to it.
You're like, well, you missed a tea or something. What's wrong with you?
No.
Get on that plane, fool.
No, nothing's wrong with me. I can't afford holidays anyway.
Oh, so where are you going to go then?
I'm not. I haven't had a holiday in 5 years.
Oh, Shirley.
And the last holiday I had was a coach holiday, which was absolutely fantastic.
Oh.
I made some brilliant friends, went to Eastbourne, and we went to some beautiful places, like Rye, went to Rye, and I spent a lovely morning in Rye Church, which is absolutely fantastic.
But those foreign churches, those churches on the continent, oh my God, the architecture is
I dare say they
just
are, but
wonderful.
I've no desire to go abroad.
Go on a boat. Go and get the hovercraft to Calais.
I've been on a boat.
Hovercraft?
I went to Germany when my son was in the army many years ago.
Yeah.
Went by train and boat.
Right.
And we had a lovely holiday there, but with my son. But no, I mean, I can't afford holidays anymore.
If you could afford it, Shirley, could afford it, if money wasn't an option, could I tempt you on a plane to Florida for a little bit of Disney World?
No.
Pirates of the Caribbean ride?
No.
We could go to New York and go up Fifth Avenue.
Oh, no, I've no desire to go to America at all.
Why?
No, it doesn't interest me.
America's the third best country in the world.
I don't care. This country's the best.
OK, how about we go to Italy? Oh, the ice creams in Italy are amazing.
No, do you know, my favourite place is the Isle of Wight.
Oh.
I love the Isle of Wight. When I was a little girl, we spent many holidays in the Isle of Wight.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And when I married and had my children, we spent holidays in the Isle of Wight. Beautiful, beautiful place.
Shirley, thank you very much. I suggest just aim a little bit higher, Shirley.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thanks, Ian. A1 High Road northbound through Beeston. It's blocked off by an accident with a lorry and a car involved. This is at the junction with New Road. The car has been overturned. The road is going to have to be blocked off there so that it can be fully cleared. So that's why it's blocked at the moment. Delays approaching that blockage. The A1 on the southbound side is queuing as you come down toward the Black Cat roundabout, and the A1M is looking slow from Hitchin towards Stevenage. It's also busy into London Stirling Corner to Apex Corner. Southbound M1, heavy traffic from the Luton Airport spur toward Redbourne. The A41 in Watford looking slow down to the M25 at Kings Langley. M25 delays clockwise and anti-clockwise through the roadworks, and anti-clockwise very slow from the M1 through to the M40 junction 21 to 16. First Capital Connect, I'm afraid they're running replacement buses between Watton at Stone and Stevenage. We've got a signalling problem at Watton at Stone, extending your journey by around 10 or 15 minutes through there. Bakerloo Line Tube, minor delays between Stonebridge Park and Harrow and Wealdstone because of a signal failure at South Kenton. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Adam, thank you very much. 8:16, it's Wednesday the 17th of July. I'm Iain Lee, and these are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. Ian McLaughlin, the escaped prisoner wanted in connection with Saturday's fatal stabbing in a village near Berkhamsted, has been arrested. Labour's spokesman for Milton Keynes South is seeking assurances that his area's hospitals agreement to take on some of Bedford's children's services is only temporary. In sport, the England big baby and striker Wayne Rooney has been left angered and confused about his position at Manchester United after manager David Moyes hinted the striker would not be his first choice. Coming up, we'll talk more about the 11+. I won mine, yeah, thumbs up. But critics say rating youngsters in this way could damage their confidence. I'll talk to Chris McGovern from the Campaign for Real Education.
BBC Three Counties Radio. Every Saturday morning from 6.
Do you trust the NHS because there are problems afoot at Bedford Hospital?
David Prever.
There was a doctor present. He had a look at it and he said, don't worry about it.
What was it then? I'm desperate to know what was wrong with you.
It was Achilles.
Achilles tendon. They told you to walk it off.
Yeah.
Every Saturday morning from 6.
We were in our paediatrics department being told that our 4-year-old son, as he was then, was a type 1 diabetic. And without the paediatrics team, we probably would have gone to pieces by now.
David Prever. Every Saturday morning from 6 on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Hey!
Hey!
Hey, you!
What colour's that shirt?
It's horrible. It's kind of like a yellow and white, but it looks great. It looks dirty. I just got it cheap. It's one of those things I thought, oh, this is reduced to £5. I could do with a short sleeve shirt. I don't care what it looks like. I don't like it.
For somebody who's frequently on the television...
Good morning.
You wear some funny clothes.
What? Hey, back up a second. I would never wear this on television.
Oh,
this is not a television shirt.
Oh, it's just us who has to look at it, I see.
You're the second person on this show this morning I've had to tell that they're being rude. Very, very naughty. So
because you're never rude, are you?
No, I'm not rude.
No.
And I'm not rude at all.
Look at
When am I ever... What is wrong with you?
No, you're not rude.
Did you not sleep last night because it was too hot?
Well, I'll be honest with you.
Here we go.
And I'm going to be honest with you. It was quite hot last night, wasn't it?
Well, wasn't it? Too hot?
I had two fans... again, pointed at me, both on number 3.
So 2 fans blowing you last night,
and I woke up at midnight, and I'd got a moist back.
Oh, that is the worst. Was one of the worst things from sweat. Yes, it's one of the worst things.
I've not wet myself.
I don't know.
You never know with me.
You don't. That's the thing. So that's left you feeling that you can come in and be critical of people's.
No, I'm sorry. That's
clothes.
very unkind.
So you don't like this shirt?
It's not one of my favourites. You know, I'm always quick to say when I like your clothes.
Well, you've never said that.
No, I have. When you've worn shirts before, I've said, oh, I like that shirt.
I don't remember that. I remember you once saying you liked some shoes I was wearing, and that was that.
Right.
So you don't like my shirt?
Well, no, I don't.
It's like the end of a soap opera. What's on your show this morning, JVS?
Coming up on the big phone in this morning from 9, should it be more difficult for learner drivers to get their licence?
Yes.
The RAC has called for a radical shake-up of driver training in the UK. So what's the plan? Well, everyone should have to spend a year driving at night and in the winter before they can even take their test. No one can carry passengers until they've had their full licence for 2 years. And if you pick up 6 points within your first 3 years behind the wheel, well, you'll have to sit your test all over again. 1 in 5 drivers has an accident within 6 months of passing their driving test at the moment. So could this be the answer? From 9 this morning, I want your views. Should it be more difficult for learner drivers to get their licence? 08459 455 555. Of course, the flip side to all of this, lots of people need their car, don't they, to get to work? I don't know. You grew up in, where was it, Slough?
Yeah, it was Slough.
Presumably you needed a car to get a decent job there?
Yeah, sure, why
Purely
not?
to leave.
Of course. To get out of there, yes. So
exactly, to get out.
Yes.
So if you haven't got a car, what on earth do you do? From 9 this morning, should it be more difficult for learner drivers to get their licence?
Shanks's.
What?
Shanks's.
Shanks's pony?
Yeah. Walk.
Well, it depends where you've got to walk to, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't at all. What if you've got to walk 2 hours to work? Walk 2 hours to work. Get on with it.
Rather than driving.
Well, if you can't drive, yes.
It's not terribly practical, though, is it?
Walking is the most practical thing in the world. How can you say walking's not practical?
But if you've got to be at work for, I don't know, 9 o'clock,
yeah,
and you live what would be, I don't know, a half-hour drive,
yeah,
but a 3-hour walk,
then you leave at 6. Do you want that job?
You think people should leave at 6 o'clock in the morning and walk for 3 hours? What? Go to work and then walk 3 hours home?
If you want that job, yeah, why not? I used to work, when I was 15, I used to work in B-Jams.
On my uncle used to work for B-Jams.
It was good B-Jams.
Yeah.
I used to work for B-Jams Farnham Road in Iceland, before it became Iceland. It was about a 30-minute walk from my house to there. Friday night and all day Saturday. I'd walk 30 minutes. Once, it was thick snow. Now, it took me 2 hours to walk there. I could have phoned up and said, I can't make it. I didn't. I walked there through 2 hours of snow, 2 hours back. What's the problem there? I was 15. Probably illegal.
It's that British spirit that has kept this country right up there.
Yes, exactly.
Through tough times.
Did you pass or fail your 11 plus?
I didn't do an 11 plus.
Sorry?
I don't know what kind of school you went to. I didn't do it.
Well, I'm 39 and you're older than me, so you must have done it. Did you not do it?
I went to... Well, no.
Well, very disappointing.
What's going on with this?
It's just a dramatic chord. All right, I'll play a proper one.
Call 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
We play a very dangerous game, Jonathan and I, that will get us the sack one day, in that we say something very, very rude just before the microphone goes up. I know, isn't it naughty? Now, let's get more on the news that 11-year-olds could be ranked against one another according to how they do in tests in maths and English. So as a parent, you'd know which achievement band your child is in. It's one of a range of measures being proposed by the government. The Deputy Prime Minister, Nick Clegg, says they don't want to turn primary schools into, quote, exam sausage factories, unquote. But they do want to better prepare youngsters for secondary education.
The leap from often what is a small, intimate, safe atmosphere at primary school to the bigger, more impersonal environment of a secondary school is a huge leap in a child's education. And this is all about making sure that children can start their first day at secondary school enthusiastic, self-confident, ready to learn, able to listen to authority, to mix well with their classmates.
That was Nick Clegg speaking through a tin can and a piece of string earlier on. But critics say rating youngsters in this way could damage their confidence and put them off learning for life.
I think it's another harebrained idea from a government that's getting desperate. Telling an 11-year-old that it's in the bottom 10%, I mean, I think it's absolutely condemning that child to permanent failure. I mean, I see it also is going to describe it as are children secondary ready? Well, what are you going to do with a child that is secondary not ready? Put it back round primary again.
Secondary unready. That was retired teacher Christine Hood, former secretary of the Hertfordshire branch of the National Union of Teachers. You may have guessed from that, she doesn't like the idea. Well, Chris McGovern is for the campaign, for Real Education. Chris, what's your view on this idea?
Well, obviously we're very much in favour of raising the bar, as Nick Clegg says. We do need to raise the bar because we're not competing well with other countries in terms of educational performance. It's going to be discussed, isn't it, whether we should have what are called deciles, that children should be placed in 10% bandings. But I have to say that most schools already know this information, because any good school, and I was a head teacher for many years, we already do these sorts of tests. They're called standardised tests, and often parents are very keen to know what is the basic educational achievement and potential of a child. So although on the one side it looks bad to say to a child you're in the bottom 10%, I'm not sure necessarily the government will go in quite that direction, but I think that information should certainly be available to parents. Parents need to know, want to know, which percentile their child is in terms of academic ability. So let's not dismiss it out of hand. But I think there is some... I am a little bit concerned if this information feeds right back to the child.
Well, this is part of it, isn't it? It's how that information is managed, and it would be cruel to go up to a child and go, "Look, you're in the bottom 10%. You're thick." But Christine Hood, who we spoke to from the NUT, is concerned that this will set those bottom 10% up for a lifetime of failure.
Yeah, and look, that concern is a real concern. Unfortunately, those bottom 10% won't know what 10% means, and I think the point Nick Clegg is trying to make is that we do need to ensure we reach a good standard. We keep telling government, and have been doing so for 20, 25 years, that the percentages they need to be looking at is not the ones you're referring to, but they should be looking at the percentages about teacher training. They should be saying, look, in this country, the bottom 20% of graduates go into teaching, or the teaching profession chooses from the bottom 20%. In the best educational systems, they come from the top 10%. So the government should be focusing far more on producing high-quality teachers and not worrying quite so much about constant testing.
Is this effectively a return to the 11 plus? And also the secondary question: did people feel inferior if they failed the 11 plus, Chris?
Well, the second question first. I failed the 11 plus.
Did you feel inferior?
Well, I passed it 2 years later, and according to Mensa, I've got a pretty high IQ in the 140s, so you could say I should be a bit aggrieved. Look, I was a bit aggrieved at the time, and I think it spurred me on. I think it depends on the child, to be honest. What is important, of course, is that very able children should go to schools which stretch them, and children who perhaps are less academic should go to schools which suit them. So we are, broadly speaking, in favour of grammar schools, and we would say that, in Northern Ireland, where they've kept grammar schools and secondary modern schools, they have the best results in the United Kingdom. So, it can label children. It has to be handled sensitively. My advice to government would be, yes, make the information available to parents, but don't get too caught up on telling children that they're in the bottom 10% or the top 10%. And you can be in the top 10% and still know very little, because at the moment in this country, by the age of 15, we're 2 years behind the Chinese, for example, in mathematics. So you could be in the top 10%, but on international comparisons, and we have that information available, pretty low down.
Chris, going off on a slight tangent, I've been informed that you're on holiday right now. You're obviously a very intelligent gentleman. Why would anybody want to holiday in the UK?
Look, the UK is a fantastic country, and I think people get put off the UK only because of the weather. Well, I'm in Italy at the moment, and the other day I noticed it's 29 degrees in Rome and 30 degrees in London. Italy and Britain, fantastically rich countries. You don't just go abroad, I have to say, just for the weather, because there are other things you go abroad for.
Culture, food, people.
Else. Absolutely. But, it's great, isn't it, that we've got that? I mean, I don't feel envious, really, because we've got great weather over here, but also it's wonderful that people can experience a proper summer holiday in the UK. But you go abroad for more than the weather, I'm sure.
Chris, thank you very much indeed. Chris McGovern from the Campaign for Real Education. That's the point. You go abroad for a holiday because you get so much more. Why go somewhere where they speak your language? Well, I don't know. I mean, you want them to have an understanding of it, but really, why would you go to Wales for a holiday? Wales? For a holiday, it's a night stay at most. A night, you go there Saturday, you have lunch there Sunday, you come back, you get home for Sunday evening. That's the most. Devon, I'll give you. I mean, it's a long drive to Devon, isn't it? So you probably want to spend 2 or 3 nights there. But doing what? Walking up hills, going to a museum to see a Roman coin and a fossil. You are kidding me.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
On the A1, going northbound, got 2 lanes closed off in Beeston because of an accident with a lorry and a car involved. It's at the New Road junction. The car has overturned and the road has been blocked, but traffic is effectively just sneaking past on the hard shoulder, so it's causing a fair few delays through there. The southbound side of the A1 is still queuing in its usual spot, coming down toward the Black Cat roundabout. Busy on the A1M from Hitchin towards Stevenage, and slow on the A1 into London, approaching the Watford bypass. Looking at the M1 southbound, there's heavy traffic from junction 10 at Luton Airport toward 9 at Redbourne. The A41 looking slow at Kings Langley, where it meets the M25. On the M25, delays both ways through the roadwork section from the A1M toward the A10. And anti-clockwise, very slow from the M1 round to the M40 junction 21 to 16. It's replacement buses for First Capital Connect between Watton, Stone and Stevenage, this because of a signalling problem. And the Bakerloo Line tube still runs with minor delays, Stonebridge Park to Harrow and Wealdstone because of a signal failure at South Kenton. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Adam, thanks very much. 8:30, News and Sport now. Here's Catherine Boyle.
Across beds, hearts and bugs.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio. Headlines. Ian McLaughlin, the escaped prisoner wanted in connection with Saturday's fatal stabbing in a village near Berkhamsted, has been arrested. Labour's spokesman for Milton Keynes South is seeking assurance that his area's hospital's agreement to take on some of Bedford's children's services is only temporary, and the government is sending teams of troubleshooters into hospitals in Buckinghamshire after placing the county's NHS trust into special measures.
Three Counties Sports.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
The England striker Wayne Rooney has been left angered and confused after it emerged that Manchester United do not plan to open talks about renewing his contract this summer. It's understood Rooney's expressed his disappointment to senior figures at Old Trafford after new manager David Moyes claimed Rooney would be second choice behind Robin van Persie. Better luck for our local clubs last night with victories in last night's friendlies. MK Dons beat Brackley 2-1 with penalties from Isel McLeod and Giorgio Rizzulo. Stevenage beat a QPR 11 2-0 with goals from Luke Freeman and Greg Tansey. Luton Town beat Hitchin 4-0 at Topfield with goals from John Shaw, Sean Wally, Dave Martin and Jonathan Smith, and Wickham were 3-0 winners at Staines. Josh Scowen, Dean Morgan and Joe Kafour were on that score sheet. Britain's Chris Froome has asked his Tour de France rival Alberto Contador on Twitter to take more care after the two nearly collided on yesterday's stage. Froome still leads by over 4 minutes but knows how easily that yellow jersey could be taken away.
One little accident and that could be the end of your tour, so at the moment I'm just trying to take the least risks I can but stay at the front of the race. Everyone knows it's a dangerous descent and we've seen a lot of images from the past on this descent, so I was aware that it was coming, but I didn't really think that the guys were going to take unnecessary risks there.
Finally, tennis, and at the age of 32, Martina Hingis is coming out of retirement to play her first competitive match on the WTA Tour since 2007. The winner of 5 Grand Slam singles titles has agreed to play in the doubles at an event at California later this month. And that's your latest news and sport. I'll be back with more at 9 o'clock.
Across beds, hearts and bucks.
This is Iain Lee.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Morning. Coming up, we'll be talking to Justin Dealey, who has been trying to find people who like to holiday in the UK. He has just messaged me. He's got a corker. He claims to have a corker. We'll find out what that is before 9 o'clock. Let's get more now on the news that 11-year-olds could be ranked against one another, according to how they... Oh, no, sorry, I'm looking at completely the wrong thing. We'll have a look at that a little bit later on. Let's go here, shall we? Yes. The government is set to send in hit squads into the hospitals of 11 NHS trusts, including Buckinghamshire Healthcare, where thousands of patients could have died needlessly. An inquiry after the failings at Stafford Hospital has highlighted examples of poor care, incompetence and weak leadership following a review of NHS trusts with high death rates. Well, Jenny Baker chairs Health Watch Bucks. Good morning, Jenny.
Oh, good morning, Ian.
Jenny, you're a newly formed organisation. Can you explain what your role is?
Yes, indeed. We Health Watch was set up really a few months ago as an independent body to make sure that local people's voices on health and social care services across Bucks are heard both locally and nationally, whether that's all about improving services today or helping to shape them for tomorrow.
What's your reaction to the Buckinghamshire Healthcare NHS Trust being placed in special measures?
Well, while we're naturally disappointed, like many of your listeners, I'm sure, that our local health and social care trust was put into special measures, we absolutely welcome the high level of public participation in the inquiry, because as we see it, hospitals should see patients as part of the solution, and Health Watch Bucks is here to help that happen.
What went wrong, do you think, at the two hospitals, Stoke Mandeville and High Wycombe?
I think Sir Bruce Keir's report actually sets that out very clearly in terms of what happened and where the improvements are needed. And I think the report, as far as we can understand it so far, having studied it, there are sort of main areas of improvement very clearly set out and identified, and we're delighted that a specific action plan has been agreed and that there's a firm and speedy timetable to get the work done.
Hospitals being put on special measures. I'm imagining that there'll be lots of patients or potential patients who are quite worried. Do we know how that will affect patients?
I imagine it won't, in the day-to-day operations of the hospitals and our patients engaging with the hospitals, it won't make the slightest bit of difference. But because this review will be going on behind the scenes, and hopefully in the longer term there will be improvements, and there will be improvements because the hospital trust is being held to account on that. But I don't think patients today should be concerned about this, because there will be business as usual.
And at Health Watch Bucks, what will you be doing to help Bucks Healthcare NHS Trust?
Well, like everyone else, we're carefully considering the findings and recommended actions to see how best we contribute. To that end, we'll be meeting with Anne Eden of the Bucks Health Trust, and we'll be gathering the opinions of service users and their families and carers and experiences in the light of the Keir review. In the next few days, we'll also be bringing together our expert volunteers who lead on our fact-finding work to consider how best we can ensure that the voices of everyone who uses Buckinghamshire healthcare services are properly heard in the context of the review. So that's what we've got a busy few weeks ahead of us.
Jenny Baker from Health Watch Bucks, thank you very much indeed. Now, Julie Smith's mother was at Stoke Mandeville Hospital when she was discharged in the middle of the night wearing just her hospital gown. The hospital later apologised, which is nice of them, and her mother is now in a care home. Julie, I would imagine you're not surprised that NHS Trust in Buckinghamshire has been put on special measures?
No, not at all. Not after our experiences, no. I think, closing High Wycombe Hospital has been the biggest downfall for the Bucks area, I think. And we've got 3 good hospitals in and around this area, Amersham, Wycombe and Stoke Mandeville, but I just think they're all just stretched to breaking point.
For those who haven't heard your story before, and your mum's story, what happened?
Well, she rang me late at night on the 12th of January to say she'd got breathing problems, so I rang an ambulance. They took her into Stoke Mandeville without telling me. I then found out that she was there, so I rang them and I said, look, she's got dementia. If you need do you need me to come over, basically? I didn't want to. No, because we're very busy, etc., etc. So I said, please ring me, because obviously Mum doesn't know what tablets she takes and what for, etc. And they said, no, that's fine, that's lovely, thank you very much. And that was it, that's all I heard. And then it got to sort of 2:15 in the morning, and I thought, well, I haven't heard anything. They must have done something for her by now. So I rang up to be told that she had been discharged in a taxi, and that there was nothing wrong with her. And the taxi driver couldn't find her home. When I rang the taxi firm, they couldn't find her home, and Mum was disorientated, obviously being 2:30 in the morning. And then the taxi driver left her in the lobby of the sheltered accommodation where she lives, and not take her to her flat as I'd asked her to do. So she was found at 6:00 in the morning by one of her neighbours, shivering with cold, because she was just in a hospital gown. I mean, that's no way to treat an elderly.
There's no way to treat anyone at all, is it? To be honest,
not anyone, but especially an 85-year-old lady who's infirm anyway.
Yeah.
And got dementia.
From your experience, Julie, what's the cause of these problems? Is it lack of funds, lack of staff? Is it lack of concern?
I don't know. I mean, they did a report, and in the report they said lots of different things, and it's a learning curve for us, and it was things that they would make sure didn't happen again. And I think it's just because we have lost Wickham Hospital A&E department, which means that everything goes to Stoke Mandeville, and Stoke Mandeville can't cope. They are really, really stretched. But on the same issue, my mum was readmitted to hospital in March, and they, again, discharged her at 10:30 at night, even though it was her GP who had sent her in for a place of safety. And it was lucky that my son was on his way home to Aylesbury, and he happened to just call in to see how Nan was getting on, and so we thought, oh, good, we're glad you've turned up, you can take her home. So that was lucky, otherwise they would have got a taxi and sent her off again. And then they were going to do the same thing 2 days later, and I had to ring her GPs to say, look, this is what they're doing. They sorted it out. The matron phoned me and said that, well, she's ready to go home. And I said, well, she's not to come home. And they wanted to, but anyway, with the GP ringing, they said that they would keep her. And once they had done their full assessment, they could see that she had lost what they call mental capacity. And so they kept her in. And then from there, obviously, she's gone to a care home now. But yeah, I think it's the government. They're just closing down all these different departments, and they're just, not taking into account that High Wycombe is a big area. We need an A&E department. We need the facilities that we used to have here. I mean, just to say that you can only go there for heart and stroke, and if you sort of cut your finger and you just need plaster putting on it, I mean, that is ridiculous to have to go all the way to Stoke Mandeville, or, as my son told me, in most cases, if it's anything else, you now have to go to John Radcliffe, which is Oxfordshire.
Yeah, I've heard examples of people being sent there. Julie, how's Mum doing now? Is she all right?
Yeah, she's up and down, which obviously, old dementia patients are. They good days, bad days. They want to still go home, But hey ho, it's one of those life little things. But I really think, somebody must do something about these problems within High Wycombe.
Well, Julie, it looks like things might be being done. I appreciate you sharing your story again. That's Julie Smith, 08459 455 555. Should we have a quick look at the front pages of the papers? We've not done it all morning. For goodness sakes, let's see what's happening here. There's there's the new voice of today. Yes, they've got a woman doing it, which is great. I don't quite. There was a big fuss about this. There's a woman presenting today on Radio 4. Oh, well done, great. BBC Radio 4's Today programme has appointed Michelle Hussain to its presenting team after a high-profile campaign for more female voices. I've often said this. There aren't enough women on the radio. There aren't, are there? How many female presenters have we got here? One who's on air with their own show. And how many shows a week does Helen do? One. I may be talking myself out of a job here, but I've often... You listen to any radio station, how many female presenters are there? Not many. Now, some people say, well, because they're not as good. That's clearly nonsense, isn't it? It's odd, isn't it? It is. It's a weird kind of thing. With BBC Three Counties Radio, we've only got one lady presenting a show. We've got some, female report. We'll let some girls go out and do some reporting. So we'll send some girls out, do little 3-minute packages, but you're not having your own show. Get real. Get real, sister. The front page of the Daily Telegraph, shaming of NHS as care crisis laid bare. And all primary pupils to be ranked by exam results. The Independent. Blood money. UK's 12.3 billion arms trade with repressive states. Oh, hello. Government approves thousands of sales to states it condemns for human rights abuse. Excuse me? The government has issued more than 3,000 export licences for military and intelligence equipment worth a total of £12.3 billion to countries which are on its own official list for human rights abuses. We're doing that, are we? Oh, well, that's nice. Oh, that's nice. We're sending weapons to those guys. Great stuff. There's a picture on the front page of the Times of a baby pygmy hippopotamus in what looks like the mushy peas. It likes the mushy peas. Cameron hammers Labour over failure of NHS trust, and murderers are among 800 prisoners on the run. Oh, happy days. They'll be running very slowly in this heat, so we should be able to catch them. The Daily Express warning 2 days of killer heat. OK, and devastated. Oxo mum Linda Bellingham, 65, vows to beat cancer. The Daily Mail. There's been a lot of politicising about this NHS stuff that was revealed yesterday. A lot of it, I've got to say, slightly inaccurate. Because, hang on a minute, haven't the coalition been in power for like 3 years? Something like that? But yet, I do find it really lazy. And we've had some politicians come on and do it, and they do it both ways. But when you get a Conservative or a Lib Dem go, well, the reason we're in such a state is because we were handed by the last government. Well, hang on a minute. You've been in power for 3 years. At what point do you stop blaming the people who were in before you and start accepting responsibility? It's like if I buy a house and live in it for 3 years, well, the reason it's so cold in this house is because the people who were here before ruined the heating and left all the windows broken. Well, hang on a second. You've got to start taking responsibility. Anyway, Daily Mail, Labour's day of shame over the NHS. And The Sun, there's 2 women on there, one showing her cleavage, and Wayne Rooney. Rooney, why I want out of Man United? It's because I want more money. I'm not being treated fairly. It's not fair. I'm Wayne Rooney.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
The A1 northbound in Beeston still delays. 2 lanes, essentially the main road, has been shut off after an accident with a lorry and a car involved at the junction with New Road. The car overturned, the road is completely blocked. What's happening at the moment is that traffic is getting past on the hard shoulder. In Roxton, the A1 looking slow as you come down to the Black Cat roundabout, busy on the A1M from Hitchin to Stevenage, and slow into London through Boreham Wood from Stirling Corner toward Mill Hill Circus. Disruption at the moment as you make your way through Luton. The A6 southbound delays. It is partially blocked by a broken down lorry near to Stockingstone Road, quite near to Wardown Park. That's looking quite slow around there. If you're heading for the M25, it is slow both ways through the roadworks this morning between the A1M and the A10, and anti-clockwise is still looking pretty slow from the M1 round to the M40. On the trains, got a fair bit of disruption. First Capital Connect, replacement buses running between Watton at Stone and Stevenage because of a signalling problem. Bakerloo Line Tube, minor delays Stonebridge Park to Harrow and Wealdstone because of a signal failure at South Kenton. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Adam. 8:47. It's Wednesday, the 17th of July. I'm Iain Lee, and these are your headlines, on BBC Three Counties Radio. Ian McLaughlin, the escaped prisoner wanted in connection with Saturday's fatal stabbing in a village near Berkhamsted, has been arrested. Labour's spokesman for Milton Keynes South is seeking assurances that his area's hospital's agreement to take on some of Bedford's children's services is only temporary. In sport, Lewis Hamilton is concerned about Mercedes not being allowed to test the new tyres being brought into Formula One at the Young Drivers' Test at Silverstone starting today. And coming up, Justin Dealey has a corker. No, it's not a medical condition. I'm not sure what it means, but we'll be hearing about it shortly. Before that, though, let's get the weather.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks weather.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, Wendy Hurrell here, and we've got a hot day ahead. We've got a temperature of 20 degrees at Luton at the moment, and with all this sunshine continuing into the afternoon, we're expecting to get to the top 20s, if not hitting 30 degrees Celsius, so a hot day. Now, there is a very small chance late afternoon and evening that 1 or 2 thunderstorms will build up. Now, if that happens at all, they'll be very isolated, and you'll be jolly unlucky to get caught in them. Most of the day is going to be dry, and the evening and night time period will be as well. A lot of clear sky, temperatures taking a long time to fall back to around sort of 15 or 16 degrees Celsius, and another pretty uncomfortable night for sleeping. And then we do it all over again tomorrow. Sunshine from the word go, perhaps just a little bit of hazy cloud to begin with, and by the afternoon a temperature of 28 degrees Celsius. But if this is all a bit too hot for you, well, Friday and the weekend might be a little more fresh. There is going to be a breeze that picks up from the east. Temperatures on Friday something like 24 or 5 degrees Celsius in the sunshine, and over the weekend the low 20s, but still plenty of blue sky to be had. That's how it's looking for now.
Thank you, Wendy.
If you've missed any of the programmes from the last week, you've missed things like this.
Mum's been stabbed. I mean, the most unlikely thing you ever expected to hear when you answered that phone on that day.
But there is a way you can hear it all again.
My younger sister, living with my mum in a little cottage, rang me to say, Mum's been stabbed.
Go to bbc.co.uk/Three Counties and click on Listen Again. All of our programmes are available for 7 days, allowing you to listen to what you missed. bbc.co.uk/3 counties.
A little bit of a travel update. The A1 has been closed between Beeston and Seddington in Bedfordshire near Sandy following an accident between a pedestrian, and a vehicle. It happened on the northbound carriageway, but both directions have been closed to allow the air ambulance to land. The ambulance service expects the A1 to be closed for a considerable time. There'll be people in their cars going, flipping it. They're saying, it's just not fair, going to be stuck here for hours. Someone's obviously very seriously injured. Always, if there's an accident and you see an air ambulance or an ambulance whizzing past, just calm down a little bit. Someone's obviously in a bit of trouble. Now, holidays in the United Kingdom. Tourism experts are predicting a big boost to the UK industry because of the hot weather. The school holidays approaching, hotels, B&Bs, caravan parks and tourist attractions like, museums and hills in this country are all expecting a boom or a boon in sales. But surely it's only fleeting. And why would anybody want to holiday in the United Kingdom? Well, Justin Dealey, who's virtually got Ibethan citizenship, joins me now. Morning, Justin.
I heard your comments about the tan earlier on, calling me orange. Very harsh, white boy.
Well, harsh but fair.
Yes.
Yes, you look like a Satsuma.
Thank you.
We've had some texts, Justin. 2 completely different texts. Listen to this. Jez in High Wycombe says, stop bigging up foreign holidays. They're overrated.
Right.
How can a trip to a foreign country be overrated? You're going to the wrong foreign countries. Yeah. We can't afford a holiday this year. Not had one for about 4 years, but had some great day trips in the UK. You should be supporting the UK economy. I support the UK economy by paying vast amounts of tax, by going to some of the wonderful places here, not swanning off to dodgy Spanish or Greek resorts. Flights full of screaming kids, no thanks, from Jez in High Wycombe.
Oh, come on.
But, and then we have the opposing view from Andrew. Morning. I try to go to one of the Canary Islands once a year. For the price of a hotel for a week in this country, I can have a week with flights, and this will give me great weather, blue sea. Also, my idea of a holiday is to get away from being ripped off. Andrew.
Exactly. In this country, if you want to go away, it's actually going to cost you more money. Yes, the weather's fantastic right now, but we all know it's not going to last. And I think a lot of people who have been holidaying in this country will also have the same thing. You go away expecting the weather to be half decent because it is summer, and then it lashes down with rain for the whole week and you've wasted all your money.
Yep. Now, you've been speaking to people about this, haven't you, Justin?
Yeah, got a great clip coming up here. This is Richard. Let's see if...
Is this your corker?
Yes, I love this guy. He's so brutally honest, and we may have people listening who totally agree. Let's find out. This is Richard. He is 53 years old. He has never been abroad in his life. He's got no interest whatsoever. So I put it to him, does he feel like he's missing out? And this is what he had to say.
No. What's wrong with England?
I mean, you don't fancy a bit of Spain?
No.
Bit of Italy? Bit of America?
No, don't fancy any of that at all. Let them stay over there and we can stay over here.
Well, there's nobody ever said to you, oh, come on, you're missing out. Come away with us.
Never.
So where do you go in this country, then?
Anywhere. Coast. Depends what's happening. Anywhere, really.
And you never see yourself going abroad? You never see yourself changing at some point?
Nope. Never seen myself at all. Typical Englishman, stay at home.
You're set in your ways, aren't you?
Oh, yes, dead set in my ways.
OK, just lastly, out of all of the friends and family that you've got, are you the only person who has never been abroad?
Possibly.
You're a one-off, aren't you?
I'm a one-off, mate, yeah. I'm a one-out the test tube, as they call it.
Especially now with all the cheap flights as well. You know, it's a great time to go abroad, but you're not interested?
Yeah, hasn't appealed to me. Spain, France, Belgium, none of them. I'll stay here.
Right, but Belgium I can understand. It's as dull as ditchwater. It's a terrible, terrible place. But Spain is fantastic. The Spanish food, the French food, and also Americans get knocked unfairly because it's something like only 10% of them have got passports. That figure is slightly plucked from the air, but it's something like that. They don't need passports in America because they have every type of weather and setting in that one continent. You've got the snow of Alaska, you've got the beaches in California, you've got the bustling city life of New York, you've got the deserts, you've got mountains, you've got everything there.
Beautiful.
That's why they don't need passports over there.
The country's so big, but how many people can we find this morning, 50 plus, a bit like Richard, who have never ever been abroad for a holiday? They've got no interest in it whatsoever because everything they need is here for them in this country, and they simply won't be changed. Can we find anybody?
We've got 5 minutes. 08459 455 555. Is there anybody who is prepared to admit that they are of an age and have never been abroad? I pity the foos. I really pity the foos who would not want to go abroad.
Cracking. Absolutely cracking.
You've been to Luton Airport, haven't you, as well?
Yes, I have. Now, obviously, Richard's not been abroad, but a lot of people flying off to hot destinations from Luton Airport. I've been talking to those this morning, and I asked them why they decided to holiday abroad rather than the UK, and this is what they had to say. Well, morning, guys. Madam, what's your name?
Willie.
And who have we got here today?
My husband James, Reginald, Fergus and Elvis Jake.
And how old are the kids?
10, 6 and 4.
Now, you're all dressed up, you've got your shades on, you've got your hat on.
Yeah.
Tell us where you're going.
Barcelona.
Barcelona. Tell us why you prefer going abroad rather than having a holiday here in the UK. And be completely honest.
It has to be the weather.
Yeah.
It has to be the weather. We went to Cornwall last year and we were freezing on the beach, and we sat on the beach and we said, next year we're going somewhere where it's hot, so we're off to Spain.
I mean, as it turns out, the weather here is beautiful right now, but then again, that's sod's law, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. You know, you just have to plan it when you can. We booked it in January, and hopefully it'll still be sunny when we get back. We'll be able to show off our tan.
So it's your last chance now. I can't convince you to not go into the airport. I can't convince you to go to Bognor, to Cornwall, to the New Forest. You're not interested? I can offer you some good deals.
No, we're off to Spain. We're going to enjoy it, aren't we, guys?
Bit of culture for the kids as well.
Yeah, we're going to take them around Barcelona and show them the sights, so really looking forward to it.
Have a fantastic time. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks very much.
Because the weather is consistent, more consistent and reliable abroad than it is in the UK. You don't take the risk.
Mostly the weather, but different experience, different culture.
Cheaper. I'm very cultural, so I like to see different cultures of different places. Climate as well. So they're my main reasons, I think.
See, it makes sense, doesn't it? Let me read you some of the Facebook comments, Justin. Rick says, one of my biggest gripes here is the standard of accommodation for what you pay in the UK. Even recently, we've stayed at perfectly acceptable places on the continent for €60 a night. In England, unless you're on a special offer, that wouldn't go far at all. We've got the scenery, the food, the entertainment and the population. Just the hotels and the B&Bs let us down. Graham says, what's a holiday? Lorna says, with a family of 7, it's local UK holidays for us. There's so much to see and explore in this country. And Michael says, I'm so glad I can get BBC Cambridge. Oh, hang on a second, that's rude. No, that's not helpful to anyone, is it? Thank you, Michael. How naughty of you.
Hi, Mike. Yeah.
I can't imagine you just turning up to a caravan park in Somerset and, going to the local bar for a light ale, then checking into your caravan. I can't see you doing that. See, camping on the Pennines.
The biggest deal for me is the weather. You know, when you're going to be going away, we all work hard. We're working harder than we were
We work very, very hard, Justin. Despite what they say on those internet forums, we work hard.
We work incredibly hard. And when I go away, what I want is a chance to relax, have a break, and to be fair, the thing that I want is the weather. If I was guaranteed the weather in this country, if you said to me, you can go away for a week in the UK, you can go to the New Forest, it's going to be sensational weather for the whole week, I'll probably take it. But in saying that, it's the expense of it as well.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be encouraging people to go away in this country. Well, you're hardly encouraging me. If I can get a cheaper deal right now, go online and go abroad. It's not worth it for me to holiday here in the UK.
I mean, one of the reasons it is cheaper for you, Justin, to go on holiday abroad is because you share a room with your mum and dad.
Oh, dear.
That's true, isn't it?
It is true, but...
Now, your last holiday, he's in his 30s, this bloke. You say 30s, I'm being kind.
Yep.
His last holiday, a few weeks ago, he went to Ibiza. He shared a room with his mum and dad?
Yeah, but it kept the price down by £300. Bargain! Come on! Wonderful.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I know, and I'm proud of it as well.
Justin, lovely to talk to you. See you tomorrow.
Cheers, bye.
Ta-ta, there we go. 08459 455 555. I'm out of time for this morning, but that is the phone number if you want to give JVS a quick call. Let's do some more of these Facebook comments. Because the UK is all I can afford, says Louise. There are beautiful areas, not many hours from 3 counties, New Forest, Cotswolds, great for short breaks, weeks away camping. Then going go north for a holiday. And Rick says, we've been lucky, spent many fantastic holidays in the Caribbean, but if you can get lucky with the weather, then the Welsh beaches are fantastic.
Travel news for beds, cards and bugs.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Delays on the A1 northbound through Beeston. There are still 2 lanes shut following an accident with a lorry and a car involved at New Road. Congestion is back to Biggleswade North and the Sainsbury's roundabout. The car involved in that accident overturned. The road is effectively blocked, but traffic is sneaking past it on the hard shoulder. Southbound on the A1, you've got delays at the Black Cat roundabout. It's busy along the A1M from Letchworth towards Stevenage and then slow on the A1 into London, approaching Stirling Corner. New Bedford Road, the A6 in Luton, partially blocked by a broken down lorry southbound near to Stockingstone Road. That's quite near Wardown Park, and it's looking slow around there. Milton Keynes quite busy on Standing Way. The A421 from Steinbeck Crescent up toward Watling Street. The A5 in Dunstable is busy at the A505, and then in Hemel there's delays on the A414. It is looking slow between the Leverstock Greenway and the M1 at Junction 7. The M25, pretty busy both ways through the roadworks. Anti-clockwise also slow from the M1 to the M40. Replacement buses, First Capital Connect, Watton at Stone to Stevenage. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Adam. That's it. Back tomorrow, bright and early at 6 o'clock. Stick around, JVS is up next. Until tomorrow, from me, ta-ta.
On FM, AM, online and digital radio.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Iain. Good morning. Welcome to the JVS show. I'm Jonathan Vernon-Smith. Wednesday morning, and on today's Big Phone In, should it be more difficult for learner drivers to get their license?